Hello, everybody. Today is August 13, 2025. Welcome back to the Propeller Live Forum after a break. And I don't think we've talked since May at Parallax, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's been a while. Today, we don't really have a whole lot to discuss. I just want to bring you current on project we're working on. Two projects, actually, relative to the propeller, and see if there's any more input on them that we should be considering. In addition to that, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about today? Because we could just move into question answer mode with Chip after these topics.
Yeah, I got a dumbass question. On the flip, because you mentioned something, you were going to talk about the flip board or something like that,
Yeah.
and the little tiny flip. Before I blow it up, can it take the same kind of external voltage like the WX board?
Something less than 12 volts, I know. I don't know what the range is. Chip, do you know offhand? We'll look at it.
What the flip tapes? I don't know. I don't have one in front of me.
Okay, because I'm trying to get the data sheet open here. I got to find it. And I'll when I get it open, I'll come back with that question to make sure I don't blow the thing up. Okay,
I
thanks.
think I've usually powered it from those 5 volt or 6 volt battery powered USB charging supplies.
Okay, because
Those
I
little
have
bright.
a 9-volt power supply I use for the WX for my experiments, and I was wondering if it can handle that. Because it said something. I was a little confused because I'm getting old. Don't get old, okay? What is this?
Indeed.
Power green or P8, blah blah blah. Something with P13 and and external power. So damn it, where is that? Okay.
Okay.
Power L Yeah, it says power LED. I'm sorry, I'm okay.
That's all right. Carry on and we'll come back to it.
I'll come back to when I find it.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So one of the topics under discussion at Parallax is the future of the P2 industrial module. And Chip can speak to the features of it. I'll speak to it sort of from a larger perspective for the moment. So this module, we started out making what you're seeing here, which is this castellated board that could be mounted on top of a printed circuit board with some heat dissipation. And the idea was that printed circuit board would go into that PLCC 44 socket, kind of like Ray Allen showed us. And I have a sample sitting at my desk. So it's really like a three-part system, and it's small. It's a great idea, but we paused it in July for a couple of reasons. The expense of it was getting high, and then the time was taking long, and we were looking at what it took to put it in a product. And it was actually it would be an expensive bill of materials and manufacturing process for us, which means expensive for our customers, which means very long return on investment for Parallax unless we have lots of customers out the gate as like a three-part system, meaning this castellated board on top of a board that goes into a ZIF socket. Do I got that explanation right, Chip?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So we paused it and I'm taking an inventory again of the customers who might be using this and their specific needs and then the date at which they need things in hopes that we have more customers to pursue this. So without more customers and more reason to make this and really agreement that this castellated design is what we're going to do, it is shelved at the moment. That doesn't mean somebody else can't pick it up and make it, but we're just sitting on it at the present time and considering what to do with it. So if you're a customer who would use this in an application with some volume, you really need to contact me.
Or just speak up here now.
Yeah, or tell us. But no, I know not everybody's here, but a lot of people see this on our videos we post. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's most of them. We only have like less than 2 dozen people here. So, um, yeah, it's a business decision for us. And I'm just trying to move us from a model of if you build it, they will come, more towards knowing that we have users, because we do much better in that way. So making a good business decision is our goal. So any input here on this?
Is there a parallax part number been assigned to it yet?
There is no part number.
And also that could be directly soldered to a PCB to minimize height. You wouldn't need a socket. I believe, right? You could just
Right. And if you put a big square opening on the underside of your board, you could put a heat sink underneath it, because we'll have there'd be an array of heat pipes under the chip that would take it out to a back copper plane.
I guess you could even cut a square hole and solder it in. I mean, certainly size becomes a limitation with the edge boards. And I've wanted something smaller like this, that to build that per job is difficult for certainly for prototyping. It's very expensive, and this would really give that a boost to get it into your product. I would like to buy one. Are they under, I don't know, they're probably under $50.
Yeah, they would really want to be. I mean, I think that considering somebody would have to do a PCB design, and we'd have to provide the pattern of this, there's a time commitment from our customers to design it in. And they would want to have some volume too to make it worth their time. Otherwise, it's like, except for space constraints, the P2 Edge is pretty good, and maybe cost. But yeah, I would agree. Like, we want this to be cheap enough. $29, $39, or what's the real purpose? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the other things about it is there's features in the P2 that the P1 doesn't have. And so you want to be able to get access to the P2 and maybe incorporate it into a previous design. I don't know if you could there's a lot of things you can do if you keep the footprint small. And I haven't been tracking this. I'm just thinking out loud here with you guys to help get a conversation started, but this also has the voltage regulation on this board.
Yeah, and the clock source.
Yeah. All those beautiful capacitors. Yeah.
That's
Hey,
good
Ken,
feedback.
what's the physical dimensions of that new prototype?
Oh, Chip, you know.
You mean of this one in front of us?
Yes.
What's the
That would
44
be-
package? Whatever a quad, not a quad 44. What's the name of it?
ELCC 84, I think. It would kind of be roughly that, but I would think this thing would be, I don't have my calipers in front of me, but probably about 1.1 inches square. Maybe a little smaller, maybe 1.2 inches square.
Okay.
And another discussion around this, I think that Johnny Mac shared with me, was to put pins on it.
Yeah, I wondered about that. That kind of generates a lot of it creates an inventory duplication.
That was gonna be my question about pins, so you can attach it to, throw it on a perf board and then play with it.
I mean, you could probably solder those on after the fact if you had a SIP header. Could you just solder them in? But yeah, you're not going to perf board that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, just so you get it on something, so you can play with it. But then if I had to put the pins on, I wouldn't be able to do those manually.
I mean, I think if you're prototyping at that level, you'd probably go to a Johnny Mac board, or have your own little daughter card breakout.
Yeah, that's right, Ted. And we also talked about if we made this, we would need to have a board so you could just start using it right away.
Mhm.
And obviously my desire is to make that as simple as possible, because the intent here is to get people into production. But to make a full prototyping board involves, to really take use of what the P2 can do, involves a lot of connectors and things. I mean, it becomes substantial. It starts to replicate a lot of boards in various forms that we already have at Parallax.
Mhm.
So it kind of pushes, it's like this whole idea is pushing pushing the customer into some volume. Like, you know, like we care about the single uses and being able to program it so you can get code in it. Okay, you're running. Now start making a product.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, the reason this thing has always been such a pain is because we have lots of IO pins. If we had a part that had like 16 IOs,
Yeah.
the board would be really lots and lots of possibilities. But we always feel like we've got to get all those 64 IOs off the board out to the customer. And that, either takes lots of room or it takes lots of, special purpose receiver for this module.
Well, I mean, looking at it, and even some of the applications I might play with, I might want to do something like, okay, I2C and a couple of IO for some time sensitive thing, maybe a CAN bus, and great, you could do all that with 8 pins with no problem. But I don't know how much smaller you could make it and still have the benefit of all the voltage regulation and the clock source.
Right.
I mean, you could sacrifice some of the pins, and maybe somebody wants some memory on there, but it starts getting out of hand. And honestly,
yeah. If we ate some pins up with memory, that would kind of solve two things. It would give us a lot of RAM, and it would mean we have less pins to escape to the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So
It does lock in. Certain people might have designs that have used all the pins. And I was going to think too, the heatsink problem. I don't know if it's a problem unless this thing is cranking. Really, these ICs are so efficient unless you're really punishing them at high speed, which most of us probably aren't capable of doing. For the average Joe, heat sinking is not going to be a problem.
Right.
About that memory and IO pin, we have one customer at the moment with the volume application who would benefit from this. Do they need memory? And does that make this bigger too as well? I mean, it makes it more expensive,
Well,
right?
it makes the escapement easier. So the usage of this becomes easier because we can go to more standard things like header pins and stuff like that. We're trying to do all these IOs on a bunch of header pins. That's kind of what's been constraining this. It just kind of occurred to me. Hey, Josh, what do you say? How many pins of this do you really need? Joshua W., you there?
That would be a question for Johnny Mac, but I want to keep it as simple and unpopulated as possible. I don't know about memory. I think John's on.
Yeah, you wouldn't need memory.
I think that you run into trouble, and I've been frustrated. I don't want to say with engineering samples, but when there's pins that have been dedicated for memory or other features to show off a board, you can struggle wondering why the pin isn't populated or why it's not working. And it's because it has some custom stuff in there. And anybody that's got a product that just wants to change a form factor might get frustrated if say half the IO pins aren't available. And honestly, you're trying to solve the customer's problem too far into the future. If they want a custom implementation, they should draw their own board up and just make it.
Yeah, these boards are such a pain to make though, because of getting the heat escapement is that first thing, then comes the power distribution. And by the time you've done that, you're at least 4 layers, and then you got to get the IO out. And
Yeah,
that
you're really
takes more.
constrained.
Yeah. You know what about this idea? What if we just took 32 and 32 IO pins and just shorted the two sets of pins together so that you could actually you don't exactly lose pins that way, but you can run like dual purposes on a single pin. Like you could run DACs and ADCs, for example, on what winds up being the same connection on the outside.
We have an application now that's using 38 pins. And
Okay.
Since my name has been thrown around a few times, let me just address a couple of things. When this was kind of, gut punched, to the customers in the forums a few weeks ago that Parallax was going back on the commitment that had been made at the May meeting, that the seemed like the issue was the mounting the PCB into a socket, which is not my idea. Somebody else had done that, and Ray Allen has built a few boards, although I think he's struggled. So, that day that I got information from Ken saying that you guys were reconsidering it, I'm just trying to solve problems. So one of the issues that I decided, oh, well, fine, because the pin thing came up there too. So he said, well, fine, let's get rid of the need to stick it into a socket and just make a castellated board that you could put 2mm pins on. And it works. You end up getting I didn't do a layout like Michael did, but I placed the major parts in there. And on a 33mm square board, which is smaller than a PLCC 84 socket, you can have a castellated board and all the connections come out. And now it's castellated, but it also, I think Martin was mentioning, the pins, you could solder your own pins in and then stick it into 2mm sockets. There are, those are pretty commonplace. So from a Parallax standpoint, it becomes easier to fabricate because now it's just a standard castellated board. You don't have to have the contacts between the castellations, which I think is the case for the socketed version. And so, castellated boards are becoming more and more commonplace. The Picos have it. A bunch of other microcontroller builders are doing it, and you still get the thing. And I even spent a couple of hours one night knocking together a model, and I sent it to Ken to prove that this was probably viable. The upshot is, again, without having to deal with those contacts between the castellations, you're just doing a standard castellated board, much easier to manufacture. And since it doesn't go into the socket, you have more PCB real estate to work with. So that, that frees up some layout opportunities.
I agree.
This may be a dumb statement, but I showed Chip a while back a board that I made with the P1 where you can drop everything in, and I copied something you guys had made a long time ago. You had I can't think of it right now, but what's that monitor connection? I can't think of it right now. For the monitor,
HDMI.
No, the other one, the real one.
VGA.
Yeah, the TV, the television, regular
VGA.
television. Yes. So what I did was I copied yours and made a big board, but to free up those pins, I put in dip switches. So all those areas that I wanted, I could use all 32 pins if I wanted to, or I could dedicate them to other things by flipping a dip switch. That was the solution that I got. I'll send you a better picture of it, but I showed you that board. You'd ask me who made it. It was me. But that's just, I'm just going to throw that out there. So yeah, so if you had something where you can drop it onto, if they want to use the pins from memory, you can dip switch to memory. That was my thought there.
Okay.
So back to Johnny Mac's statement, what John was saying, and I think I agree where he's going, which is this doesn't have to be in a socket. And when you look at what others have done, we don't need to be the first to go recreate this whole investigation of whether or not we can put this on a board and then put a board in a socket. Like I've seen, you mentioned the Pico, Digi made their XP modules as the castellated version. And there are other things that could have been socketed, but it hasn't really been achieved. And to me, not being an engineer, but watching engineering, that kind of stuff scares me because it becomes a rabbit hole of, can you make a circuit board look and act like pins on a chip and then make it securely sit into a socket, and it looks cool, but we're not the right people to spend a lot of time, money to figure that out. So I think we can agree that it's not going to go into a PLCC socket.
May I share my screen, Ken?
Yeah. Here, let me dump this share that I have going, John. All you, bud.
I'll just do the. Can you see this 3D model?
Yes.
So this was the mock-up that I did. Again, I just put on a dip 8 and a whatever this is a P2 model I got from Parallax, but this is 33 millimeters across. So it's not very big, although it's bigger than the PCB that would go inside a PLC and inside the PLCC 84 socket. And this dimension, these are the same. X and Y are the same dimension. It is smaller than the outside dimension of the PLCC socket. So you get more room in here. Now, the reason I put these mounting holes on is because I'm showing it with standard 2mm pins that the user would put on if they wanted, because you can get these 2mm pin strips and 2mm sockets. So you could socket it. Now, I put these holes on there so that if we decided to do that in laser tag, then we'd want to have some way to really secure the module, because we have kids running around and throwing our laser tag guns and doing all that stuff. You saw them in May. You saw how rambunctious kids get. But this, again, the socket idea was demonstrated by another Parallax customer now too, because Ray has been experimenting with it. But it wasn't a have to have. It was a nice to have. And since it has become so problematic, let's skip that and go to, again, something is very standard. Even in this, I wouldn't normally have put the pins on, but that came up in a conversation, and it makes sense because the Pico does it. I have a Pico sitting here on my desk. You can solder it as a castellated thing, or they have the ability to add pins. So we're going with that kind of new standard for the way people are doing microcontroller things. So we get a smaller package, easier to deal with. And if it's, we would do the same thing as Chip was saying, probably the suggested layout for this would include a big air hole underneath it if you were going to solder it directly to, surface mount pads with the castellated pads. Or if you were using the socketed, you wouldn't have to, because you'd have air underneath it, because it's pushed up by the sockets. And so there would already be some airflow. So this, I'm trying to solve a problem in that I need a microcontroller that has the horsepower of the P2 that I can fit into my current product. We've tried 17 ways from Sunday. We cannot fit the edge into our product. And that's a complaint I've got from my friend Rick and several other people. The edge is nice as it is. It's too big for too many commercial products.
John, an observation. Ken, I don't have any news yet. John, an observation. Your drawing is actually not showing until you flip it over the actual castellations. And
yeah,
this is confused.
Yeah, this is dip trace doesn't yeah. So these are I don't know what to call these, oval shaped pads, but you can see I have drills there. So it's a rendering issue from dip trace.
Thank you for clarifying. I was worrying about your term of using castellation and
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I should have
you.
pointed out that dip trace is not good at rendering that.
Question about heat dissipation. So I've always understood this module has to be mounted with the chip on a board directly touching something else to dissipate heat. Like, Chip, what's your input here?
Well, yeah, if you wanted to dissipate heat, you probably want to put something on the back of that, like a heat sink, or maybe blow air on it, or let it convectively cool. There might be, I don't know, it depends how hot it's getting and all that.
So, like, coming back to the customer here, and he has an application with this laser tagger, he's not going to put a fan in there. He's
No.
probably going to mount it to his board and not use pins.
But in our case, we monitor temperature inside our products now. And so, and we only run, we have a self-imposed cap of 200 megahertz. The only people that are going to be worried about heating with the P2 ever are the people that are so caught up in 80s gaming that they can't see past the 80s. Because those are the only people that need to overclock. I've never seen anybody else, you know, or any other application besides that. And now I'm not saying that some people won't want to go a little faster, because certainly it's nice, especially with the efficiency of the P2 instruction set. But you know, in our case, we don't, that's not an issue. And that's one of the things you could impose. You could say, listen, we suggest that this works up to this clock rate under these temperature conditions.
So to summarize, you have no heat dissipation issue and you'd use pins.
I don't know. I think we would probably start with pins and then ultimately go to just soldering it directly to the board. But now this is a case too, that this is going to be on Parallax to make this P2. I'm calling this a P2IC now for industrial castellated. That you have to make it so that this module can be reflowed. And I've checked with other vendors, and their modules, like the Pico, can go through a reflow oven. There's a Seed Studio, I think it is. They make a series of small micro modules called Shao, and I use those in some cosplay accessories I make for a friend, and they're fine to be reflowed. So, and I think Michael, you know, he had talked about this. It just means that these have to be manufactured with a higher temperature solder so that they can go through a standard reflow process.
It also, using as pins and sockets greatly increases board and implementation cost. It creates people are going to be prying on it with a screwdriver. It's easier to reverse engineer if you're trying to make an industrial product. It is nice if you want to ship the customer a replacement module to install, but I don't know that the cost of pins and anything that's machined these days is crazy. I think it's probably going to be a solder it in place. You don't have to worry about it popping out. And
yeah, that would be my drive too. Having the holes there for the pins just allows customers and experimenters who want to work with this to do it that way. But to your point, we will probably prototype with pins and then move to direct solder.
Yeah, and you don't typically ship. You don't have any of your customers blowing these up because you're going to harden all your inputs and
right. Yeah, we're all self-contained, and it's all low voltage stuff. So it's I don't know. Josh, he handles our customer interface and is masterful with it. I don't think we've ever destroyed one of our processor boards. Our current processor board, of course, has a P1.
Yeah,
but we jump through unbelievable hoops with the memory constraints of the P1 to make that all work. I mean, we're very much looking forward to having laser tag run on the P2. But we're constrained by size. Ultimately, we won't. But we have always, with our particular customers, we've always allowed them to upgrade what they have. And if we were forced to go to the edge, we would have to then say, okay, you have to wait till the new bodies are available. And that would upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well,
you could also put a P1 on the same form factor too, and use some of your prototyping hardware. But
there's one other, I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the stamp also has through holes along the edge. I think I want to say 0.5 millimeter. I can't remember offhand, but you can also just use little pins to solder it to a board. You don't have to use the castellation.
Yeah, that's what I have on here.
Well, he's talking about the side mount pins, that are.
Oh, you mean coming straight out?
Yeah, straight off the edge.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that too. Well, in fact, these pins would fit, since they're aligned with the castellations. You could solder them into that as well.
Yeah.
So that would be a
basically-
dimensional thing to check. It would be nice. I think what Ray's suggesting is, if you had these in that the module itself would slide right down onto where this pin, instead of coming up behind the castellation, would come right up through the middle. So it'd be nice to have this edge dimension to this edge dimension be nice and even. So right now it's 33 millimeters, which I don't know what that is in tenths. I think it's 1.4. Could be wrong. Yeah, I can, let me do this.
So John, the summary then for your need is
1.26.
what you're
Okay.
showing is castellated edges that accept pins, right?
Well, again, the pins, if we end up not getting them, fine. But since you brought it up in our conversation, I added them here.
Oh, I see what you did. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so these are pinholes. These are the castellated cuts. So this is a way, and I'm not a PCB guy per se. I mean, I do simple ones, but this is how the dip trace people said, yeah, you just need to put your drill hole for the pad right on the edge of the board for castellated things.
Understood. And that matches the Pico, doesn't it?
That's what the Pico is. Yeah, I have one here. They have, now they're on 0.1 spacing, but they do have that. They have the castellated edge, and then inset from the castellated edge is the ability to solder in a pin. That's why they actually have two part numbers for the Pico. They have the standard Pico, and then they have one called the -H where they solder in the headers for you.
And Parallax does that for Pico users too.
Yeah.
1,000 at a time.
So it'd be the same thing.
So for a minute, just to clarify, it's one moment I had the impression that they were really slots that could accept pins, but no, there's a hole and then a slot or a round castellated edge on the outside.
Yeah, I don't know, but is that what you were looking for, Ray, or did you want the headers to fit here versus here?
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone and
Oh.
my near vision isn't very good, so I can't.
Okay. No
so-
worries.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, anyway, if we can get the project back moving, then we have conversations that we can clarify everything. So,
Yeah.
The frustration for me is that we have the success of two different edge modules. So it's just a matter of transferring that sans the dip switch and the SD socket onto this board.
Yeah, understood. I mean, this is good to revisit. And in absence of this, you could see how things could really run amok, summer thrown in there as well. And we've been busy and just it was getting a little bit taking on a life of its own. So
Let's herd the cats and fix this thing.
yeah. So one thing I'll want to know that we don't usually ask our customers that I keep asking is I'm going to need some more clarification on commitments. We need enough to do this. We need enough commitment to want to do this. We don't need to or have the means to make a risky project that does not have return. And that means we have to define a board that this would go on. And really, in my view, if someone's going to make a PCB, then we give them a board that has a prop plug and a power supply input and that this fits into. And they could do their prototyping on the Johnny Mac board or anything else we've got. So we don't need to repeat all those processes.
Well, you could just plop this down right into the middle of the P2 eval framework.
Yeah, even smaller.
That's another board, though. That's another
be-
board.
Well, but Ken was just talking. You have to have an experimenter board, or
Right.
the Johnny Mac is as much as I enjoy having my name on that, it's big. Most of the time, I'm using P2 eval with my own little. I've taken the little IO module boards that you guys started, and I've built 20. Well, you've seen some of them. I've built bunches of them, so that's how Josh and I prototype stuff.
Well, the new Super Mini Mac board would be no bigger than 2 inches square and would have a prop plug and a power supply input, nothing else, because you could prototype all this on the Super Mac, Johnny Mac. The Whopper board, right?
Is the
Are you talking chip size or the
No, he's talking
experimental
boards.
board that goes with
So,
it?
so are you suggesting, Ken, building a board out here that has then the headers, you know, two
Yeah,
headers
yeah,
on each
so-
side?
yeah,
So it would be
sorry.
like a mini eval.
Yeah,
Then
but
what is
without
that?
connectors.
What is that board you're talking about? The Super Johnny Mac, whatever, the new board?
Well, let me back up here. So we need customers to be able to program this when they get it right out of the box. They don't need any barriers, right? They're enough. So we need to make a board that can hold this so that when they receive a package, maybe it's a starter kit, they have this board, they have a carrier board, and they have a prop plug and a power supply. And I am advocating for a very simple design of that carrier that just lets them program it so they could see that it works. And nothing else, because we've made an abundance of boards that have all the various connectors to prototype most everything people want to do. So I think we could simplify.
I think you'd make like a P2 edge carrier that
Right.
was socketed that would allow integration with the P2 edge, because that's probably 95% of the P2 modules that are out there are P2 edge modules. People already have that platform.
That's an interesting idea.
No,
Yeah,
you
for
stick this on an edge PCB. Is that what you're suggesting, Ted?
Yeah, put that on a bigger edge because it would take a little more than what's there. And then you've got your connector, your power, and you could you could make that fairly low cost with one socket or solderable pins. I don't know. You only have like 30 millimeters sticking up.
That's an interesting
Yeah, so-
idea.
I was just gonna say one thing that for the what I did for the stamp, the carrier board, I did a USB-C power, and that's real simple because all you need is 2 resistors. You don't need any other handshaking to get 5-volt power applied. So that's kind of makes things easier.
Like you're using the power delivery?
No, well, power delivery is something else. That's how you can get like 20 volts. This is just standard 5-volt power.
Oh, 5-volt only. I thought you were using resistors to trick the PD. I have some of those modules somewhere. Those are fun. Yeah, USB-C is fun too, but I mean, I think that you want to minimize the number of boards you have to make to get this thing off the ground. And if the more boards you add, the longer it's going to take to market, the more we're going to get people are going to go and build their own or go somewhere else. So
yeah, but if USB-C is ubiquitous, especially in the microcontroller world nowadays. So if you just hang you supply USB-C for power and your serial connection for boot and stuff, then it makes it simple for the end user. All it just plugs in one USB-C cable. You can't run high power stuff, but he can get up and running and maybe have a separate connector like the Raspberry Pi just for USB-C power.
Yeah, the power on USB-C, I think sometimes it can be 100 watts if you get that power delivery thing going. But yeah, for regular stuff, it's fairly low power, right?
It sounds like the ultra bare bones solution would be a board slightly bigger than this with a USB connector on it and nothing else.
The
Doesn't
easier
sound
you
very
make it,
fun. Pardon, Doug?
the easier you make it, the more people are going to use it. Especially if the simpler you make it, the cheaper it's going to be.
this is not really for prototyping. This is for implementation. The only people prototyping this are people who have already done other work. You're not going to get a classroom of kids to try to solder to this. It's going to be industrial. It's going to be implementation. And I think that it's a mistake to clutter it with more than the basics.
Yeah, I wonder if you have the 0.5 millimeter pin header through holes on the edges that if you could be socketed. There's probably I haven't seen one, but there's probably a socket for the 0.5 millimeter pins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, not a socket, but I mean like a female header. So like 4 headers.
You still have to get power, if you're going to.
I think all you need is the USB-C power with USB-C connector, 2 resistors, and then a propeller. What's it called? The plug holes. Yeah, I think that'd be the minimum.
But Ken, to your point though, again, this is an edge without the edge. So why does it need its own development board? If I, as a
Right.
developer, could write
Mhm.
code, you know, for an edge and then stick it onto this as long as I had all the IO available.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, Ted's idea was a nice one too, but we don't even need to do that really for the fully intended audiences, which is you have volume in mind. You just need to see that it works. You're going to design the circuit board. All your prototyping could be done on the Johnny Mac board.
Yeah.
So
If you
like,
want bare minimum,
yeah, I
bare
mean, that's right. And the longer, like the calculations for these things, the behind the scenes cost on these are big. Making this simple board, you know, that we want to make in production. I think everybody would be surprised what it takes to really bring this to market and get the
Mhm.
inventory. And a lot of the inventory now we have to buy in advance because the lead times are really long and the parts costs can be high and everything is a risk. And just trying to minimize risk. Like we could spend, if we made the solution Chip would love, which is the whole standalone computer system that this thing mounts into and this board, I bet you we'd be in $50,000 plus by the time the pick and place turned on. And that's inventory and design and prototyping and stencils and building the BOM and ordering the parts and everything.
and what kind of lead time as well.
Yeah, and if you do the math on that, so we want a $29 price. We're a fabless semiconductor company. Okay, so we have the chip cost, the board cost. This can become $17, $18 fast. That's the margin, again, that I always like to use. That's what Walmart gets for throwing a pair of pants on a rack.
Mm.
You know, like we have to, and you can take that gross profit per unit and then amortize it over how many units you need to sell to get back your investment. And
Yeah, well, maybe you don't have the tariff problem, but the other thing is when I went to buy 100 stamps, and that was a reasonable cost. But then I looked at what the tariff was going to be, and it's like basically doubling the price. So that's a no go. That makes the cost over $200. So it's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, now thankfully our chips are not tariffed because I'll take this opportunity to let you know and remind you they're made in the USA.
Although it was a long time ago, but I remember something about them being packaged somewhere else.
Yeah, well, that's a problem for anybody that makes a semiconductor in the USA. There's no packaging at the moment, so
Yeah,
they
they're
go to
packaged in the Philippines.
yeah.
And that no tariff thing wouldn't help Ted.
We're good. It's coming this way, unless we do counter to.
Okay, so
But
all right.
I was gonna say just one other thing that I'm facing that I think Parallax has a solution for is doing if you did build a board like the edge, not the edge, the eval that had all the 12 pin sockets there or headers. I think you guys have a way to like do that easily, whereas I think that's a kind of a sore point for me. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did Chip talk about his plans for a full-blown propeller computer recently?
Oh, well, oh boy, Doug or Ted, you're opening it up. But okay, let's park this issue and then move on. So we have three.
No,
We can get there, Doug.
what's the statement or promise or thoughts? Are we still thinking? I mean, based on my trip out to see you at the show, I made a presentation to my boss, and now I'm left wondering what are we gonna do?
Yep, hold tight. We're gonna meet offline outside of the public forum here and talk.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah. And we will need to include two other users who are very small.
Oh,
And
I had a question. Is like GoFundMe something? Is that a possibility, or does that not work for big companies? I don't know.
I would say probably not in our expertise, interest, and bandwidth at the moment.
Okay, gotcha.
Or Kickstarter, like our user base is small enough that it would probably not achieve our goal.
I think you're by building this. I'm trying to get a grip on who your client is. I think anybody that has that's well tooled for PCB design is just going to design their own P2 board and put the raw parts on there and save that $10 cost. but people who are trying to get started don't have the $50,000 it takes just to design it. And so they'd be probably happy to pay a bit of a premium to get their product to market faster. And I don't think you'd be remiss to charge some of the development costs on the first 10,000 units, just put them up at 75 or $100. And then once you recovered some of your design costs, and drop it.
Yep.
That
That's
makes
it
sense,
exactly.
especially if the thing will do 340 megahertz.
Well, yeah, it remains to be seen if you could run it so fast or so hot.
Oh,
But,
that's the other thing I was going to say is the stamp. It's pretty amazing. I guess I think it must be the 8 layers. But it can take the heat.
Well, what John pointed out earlier is important. The user, the customer, and what they're doing with it, and whether or not they need heat dissipation depends on how fast they're running, right? And to date, those users are not our primary market.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody using it for actual, application wouldn't go more than 200, right? So.
Yeah, so I'm totally focused on the customer here, and appreciate Josh saying, "Well, wait, what about us? What you said?" So, and hey, the reality is, because you make products too, these things get really expensive, and you got to stop and rewind and pause, and then look for the way forward. And sometimes these big trains just get really heavy, and they'll just like run off the tracks and try to run us off the tracks.
If we could just figure out how to get your education department interested in parallax processors, then you'd have a whole bunch more customers.
No, it's not that, John. We don't need to interest our education department on that, because education has changed so much what they want. And they've shown us that. And it's generally, to be honest, I would love for it to be what you just described, the P2, but it's not. And it would take a lot to make it that interesting to them.
And education is currently one of the biggest Propeller users, with a Propeller 1 chip in every cyberbot that we sell, and it's our top seller product at this time.
Did the customers know it's there?
Yes, it's in the education, but they use the microbit. They program in Python.
Yeah, but it's not the example I was thinking of from John's comment, which is using it in curriculum as the primary development tool. It's a passenger on that board to make things possible.
Yeah, because Josh and I are when this bad news came, we thought, okay, what other options do we have? And frankly, now we're considering going with like a Raspberry Pi Zero, using, just like the Cyberbot, a P1 as an IO coprocessor to do the stuff in laser tag that becomes difficult is infrared in and out at the same time, which is where our competitors struggle. We don't, because we have the advantages of the P1. The multi-core stuff makes it very easy. But in our case, we need a small, we got small space requirements, and we've got big computational requirements. And again, our goal is a P2. I've spent the last, since the P2 came out and even before, converting all of our code and making sure everything that we do on the P1 will operate on the P2. And that it would be nice to just continue down that path. I don't want to have to learn another platform, but my boss is pushing Josh and me for a new product.
Yeah. Thanks, John. So I'll schedule you and I and Josh to meet on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you just thought.
Ray, you're breaking up. I think we're hearing about 10%.
Oh, yeah, I probably should talk about that.
Oh, Ray sounds a little
Anyway,
bit broken.
Yeah, we're hearing
Okay,
about
sorry.
10% maybe.
But anyway, Ray is a potential user, as is John Huffman. So, but primary user is Johnny Mac and Josh so far. Okay. So we can move on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can move on.
Okay. Thanks, Ray. lively discussion's a good thing. Where should we go next?
Full-blown computer.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we're asking about the full-blown computer, so that's switching over to Chip.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like long-term goal of mine, but we don't really have the resources to do it right now. But Michael and I were, kind of looking into it a couple months ago, and we found that for $2 we could get it's like a component video to HDMI chip, which was nice and small. It's what they use in these converters. So that would let us do full 1080p, and then we could put that PS RAM on there. And doing component video only takes like 3 pins, and then it also would encode left and right audio through 2 other analog pins. So with 5 analog pins, we could do like 1080p video and stereo sound and then just over an HDMI connector. So that was good. But we haven't been able to look more into that lately. I've just been programming the chip. I've been doing some work for Doug, the guy who used to rent the shop here, and he's got a building out at the airport, and he's probably going to get another one. He's building all these huge machines, and I'm doing some motion control software for him on the P2, and it's working beautifully. He's paying me well, and I was kind of nervous that I'd be able to produce for him, but I've been using this Chat GPT, and boy, it's just amazing. That thing springs me out of any pothole I land in. I can pose pretty complex questions to it, and it understands the context. And so I've been getting a lot of work done for him. Now we're integrating this motion control into like an Ethernet IP, which is like industrial protocol device. So I'm having to kind of learn about Ethernet and CIP on top of Ethernet. And that's been crazy uphill, like scaling a wall. Chat GPT has been kind of getting me through that, but I don't even fully know what I don't know yet, and kind of have ideas about how this stuff all works, but it's kind of coming together. But in earnest, I've only been working on the Ethernet integration for about 2 solid days. So I guess it's moving forward, but it's just a lot to learn. And but we would like to build this motion control product so that it has a touch screen and you can configure it without a PC. So it kind of is like that idea of a standalone computer. If we had that thing right now, it would be good for this project. When we're using this Wiznet chip, which is like a $5 part that does the first 4 layers of Ethernet for us. And we're just communicating over SPI bus. It has a parallel bus, but for our data rates, the SPI bus is fine. And we got Terry Trapp. He built us one of these boards, and he came out in May. I think he passed them around to some people. So we've been using that thing, and it's all coming together. And but I've exercised the tools a lot, like the language. I've had some first couple of days I was there, I had really hard bugs to fix, and I couldn't find them. It turned out I just added some code that I had forgotten about that was screwing everything up. It was masquerading as what looked like maybe a structure bug. So I went deep into it and found all the structure stuff is working as it's supposed to. So I haven't found any problem with the tools. I've just been fighting my own, initially fighting my own bugs, and then learning this. Well, I got a Core XY thing done for the motion. So I'm using 2 motors at once, even though it's all designed for a whole bunch of singular motors. I can do the Core XY thing nicely and with integrated motion. So that's just what I've been doing. And like this computer thing to exist, and maybe I'll get around to it at some point. But we also need the resources to make it happen. It takes money and time.
Did you ever look into like the Commander X16 project?
Commander
X16?
You know, did you tell me about this a while ago?
Yeah, I did.
I
and
might have looked it up, but I don't remember.
it's become like an internet sensation, and they a bunch of, you know, old 8-bitters like yourself and I. And it was started by the 8-bit guy, but they finally got it produced, and it was like the smallest kit was $300, and it took a couple of years, but it was
Wow.
mostly volunteer work. But I'm guessing they're recouping their costs now, but they were able to sell quite a few of them. They ran out of first couple
Interesting.
batches.
I just
And
found
now
their
there's-
website. It looks interesting.
Yeah, and I personally think it's cool because it's got a 6502 in it, but technology wise, compared to the P2, it's kind of lame.
Yeah.
You know, because as simple as you can do like a P2 Edge with 32
Harry-
megs of RAM on it, it's just so much more capability.
I see they have a little forum here. Terry Trapp was helping me with the Wiznet thing because he used that for his Blitzen lights controller. And he said he's running a BBS at home, and that thing gets like hundreds of calls. I guess people are like telephoning in and using modems or something and talking to it, but it's all kind of nostalgic 8-bit stuff.
Like the old days of the basic stamp one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot faster than that. But
Well, no, I know. Well, sorry. What I meant is in the early days of the basic stamp one, Parallax had a BBS that I would call in every morning, then write code for people after work, and then upload it that night.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And you just had the terminal in front of you and maybe some windows open on the side, but you didn't have the distraction from the internet pinging you all the time.
Oh
You
yeah,
didn't
the
have a
internet
cell
was like-
phone next to you to bother you. That's one of the things us old farts miss, is the easy ability to just focus on something without all the distraction that comes with the internet.
Right, right. Yeah, you know, I think when I think of myself working like that, I think my imagination's a lot better. But when you're being distracted all the time with all sorts of flashy stuff, it's just a total distraction. And it doesn't, it's like you're looking at other imaginations, not your own.
Yeah. Yeah, I run some LLMs, and I put those on serial ports. I don't want all that GUI stuff. I just want to be able to telnet to a serial port and talk to it, you know. And you said you're using ChatGPT. I use Quen 3 Coder 70B or something like that.
Is it like a local model?
Oh yeah, I run everything local. I don't even do the internet ones. But it's amazing. I had a chat with you about how I was impressed that Llama 3.3, I think, knew what to do with a propeller and doing synchronization of time. Well, that was on a 70 billion parameter model. Anything smaller than that would mess it up. Well, the Quen 3 coder is just amazing, even on obscure things like the Propeller 1 or Propeller 2. So I don't have time to play with it that much on the Propeller right now, but I'm going to be doing a whole lot of crypto coding here. And the tools have just gotten amazing. But like I said, I can put that thing on a serial port and hit it with dumb computers and still get my work done without all the nonsense that tries to distract me. And that's what would be
I wonder
cool.
how it compares.
What's that?
I wonder how it compares to like GPT-5. Because I was using it yesterday, and it would look up not just the Wiznet chip, it would read like all the data sheets and figure out all this subtle stuff about how the buffer wraps and the gotchas, and it was like doing the job of a researcher, not just relying on its information, its extant base, but it was going out and finding stuff, and you know, I think giving me pretty thorough advice. Sometimes it would make silly mistakes like AIs do, but it was really going out and digging for information and then using it.
Yeah, that's one thing you don't get with local railroads. At least not yet. I don't have any agents to go hunting for that stuff. I heard
Yeah.
Grok 4 was the best, but I don't try those things out. I just watch YouTube videos about them and
A buddy
download
of
the
mine,
ones.
a buddy of mine, a former NSA guy, now works for, I think it's called Accenture, one of the big IT companies. In fact, his client is Microsoft. He thinks Grok 4 is the best, or whatever the latest Grok is. And I like Chip, I've used ChatGPT, and I'm using just the free online stuff. I'm not paying for anything yet. And I have run into some silly errors. But
I think they all do it.
yeah, exactly. And then you say, hey, this doesn't work. But yesterday I had a really obnoxious one. I was looking for, there's one bit of code in the P1 that we don't have running yet in the P2, and it's a SHA-256 hash. There was a time when I was away from the laser tag and they brought in another guy, and he decided that was a better thing to use than just a simple CRC to validate small packets. It was kind of a silly notion, but it's in the code, and I've got to be compatible with that in the P2. So I thought, well, this is fine. SHA-256 is really well known. So I'll say, hey, ChatGPT, I need this for the P2. And I told it for the P2, and I even obnoxiously said, in my style. I put my name in there, and it says, oh yeah, John McPhalen, known for his well-documented and yada yada. It's really weird the way that they do.
Yeah, they're very upbeat and real
yes.
positive
Yes.
and mission oriented. I mean, we were in the weeds with this Wiznet thing. When we finally got one problem resolved, it's like, okay, now back to the internet IP portion of this, so it doesn't lose track.
Yeah, but it gave me a piece of code, and I thought, well, okay, I'm just going to copy it and stick it into the. But it turned out to be just a bad translation from C, because it was still, had multiple statements on lines with semicolons. So I thought, well, it's probably good. I have P1 code that the original person wrote, and I should probably just go through there and manually translate it. The trick for me is that I'm not super strong at assembly programming, and the nice thing about the P2 is there are so many nicer assembly instructions in the P2 than the P1. So I'm sure that you or Ada or Evan or some of the super PASM programmers could say, oh no, this could be much more efficient. I'm just struggling to find that right now.
Yeah.
I think in the future,
well,
I think
Grok definitely thinks Johnny Mac is the two guy for spin programming. It told me that anyway.
I actually, being an obnoxious guy who lives in Hollywood, so I actually said to one of them, I don't remember which AI, I said, my name is John McPhalen. Do you know who I am? And it came back with this just ridiculously gushing commentary about my ability to write spin code, and this made me laugh.
How did it find that, John?
Pardon?
How did it find that? I mean, if I put my name into this, you said you're using Grok?
I think it was Grok that did that, because my friend Rocco, he had recommended Grok, and he said, write me a program that does X. I can't remember what he wanted, in Johnny Mac's style. The interesting thing is that it had enough data that it knew Johnny Mac was John McPhalen.
Interesting, because I'm leery of this AI stuff, but I'm going to try that. Throw my name in and throw I'm even going to throw in Chip Gracie and see what it says. I'll do that later.
Just the nice thing is you can, when it writes you a program, there's usually a copy button, copy it, and then, stick it in. And what I found, and I think Chip had probably seen this too, you can go say, hey, this doesn't work, and here's why. What is funny is it'll always come back and say, oh, of course, you're absolutely right. Let me fix that.
But when it does write the code, does it give documentation of what it's doing, or just write you some code?
I've not seen anything. I've not noticed comments like I would put into a program, but it tends to seem to name things reasonably. So that is, again, for me, I got a little more involved with it where Ray Allen was working on a and he probably still is, a Modbus slave for the P2. And I had done Modbus for the P1, and I thought, okay, this is a way, because I've had some really stressful days lately, and I thought, okay, I could use this as kind of a memory or a mind cleanse and do something useful, because I have some ideas for using Modbus and laser tag buildings and things like that. So I started going through that. And what I found, and I think Chip was kind of indicating this, if there's something that's well documented, I mean, Modbus has been around since we were kids. So there's lots and lots of information out there on it. And so I was asking it for, okay, show me this Modbus command from the master and show me a typical response so I could format things. Because I did find, I mean, Ray had added a feature, it's Modbus command 17, that is allows you to return a byte value that indicates what the device is and a status, and then user defined information. And it gave me, it said, okay, here's the request, and then here's a response, and the response was misformatted. So you do have to check. I guess the direct point is, don't trust any of the code, but look through. Now, on the other side of that is that I had an OLED that I had never used before. So I asked for a generic thing. And this is what I have found, for me anyway, works best, because while some of the LLMs are getting better at spin 1 and spin 2, I will typically say, like on this OLED, I said, hey, I've got this OLED, it uses SPI, show me generic SPI code, bitbang SPI code to operate this. And so I took that, and because SPI is so easy in the P2, I did an on-the-fly translation to the P2, and it worked the first time.
Okay.
So it's useful. It's a useful tool.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
In the future, we'll be able to connect up an agent through like a local big LLM and have it try the different plethora of ways to do things with all the spin 2 mnemonics, and have it do all the timing, say on another propeller, watching what's going on, or even within the same propeller, you could do millisecond timing. And then your large language model can improve the code and make sure it works to make it faster and more efficient. And therefore use the mnemonics that P2 has. I think that'll be awesome.
Would you mind me teasing something? It's related to what you're just discussing. I've been working a lot on the Spin 2 capabilities for VS Code. As you know, we upgraded the Peanut TS compiler and the Spin 2 extension, and I'm continuing to do more. One of the things that's happening is complete audits of the PASM language for P2 and complete audits of the Spin language. That's going to allow me to provide and generate some really carefully prepared documentation that speaks to the language itself. I suggest that once that product exists, it's going to be smaller than all the documentation we have so far, and is probably a reasonable thing for feeding into, since it's in such rich detail since I was doing highlighting. It's probably reasonable for feeding that into one of these models and training it how to do PASM 2 and Spin 2. So this is just a thought. That's a future product of what I'm doing. It's probably a couple of weeks away, but I just wanted to give you a heads up and something to noodle about.
Fantastic idea. I've tried to condense just the concentrated documentation as it is right now and put in the context of the LLMs on each thing I do. It adds a lot, because it's just trolling, like lots of the others. There's not a lot of Spin 2 out in GitHub or out on the inner tubes, and having that documentation really made them return better results.
Used RHE for that. You should fed it the document and then had it build codes based on it.
You asking me how I'm doing this or what? Or are you talking?
Shannon. I was
Okay,
asking
thank you.
Shannon.
Pardon?
Yeah. I pay for Perplexity and Grok, and you kind of have project kind of rooms here, and I've got just the room where I do spin and propeller stuff. And I preload the documents. I say, look here first. This is the real stuff. Don't wander around and do what you think Python might have done. Look here first. So that's kind of built into these tools I'm using. But if you're just even using the free version, you kind of paste the whole document right into your context and then ask your question with it. And even that helps.
I wonder if it could create like tutorials from the documentation.
I'm sure it could. In fact, I've been having good luck recently teasing out. I've been working with clips or production systems, old school expert systems, that could prove how it came to an answer, which the LLMs can't do right now, and that's a problem. But the old school systems, if you could put data in these expert systems, give you a logical deduction on how it arrived at its answers. And I've been having good luck at getting these LLMs who have a ton of general knowledge and have it pull the rules and the facts out of the universe of knowledge. And the rules and facts are the kind of the style, the form. It's a kind of a Lisp format to feed into these expert systems, and then you can query it and positively know it'll show you the chain of logic it came to its conclusion from. So it's kind of like a compiler for thought.
Right.
And I worked a couple of weeks kind of perfecting a prompt that I feed in on a topic. Like building energy modeling is something I've done for a decade, so I recognize it if it's giving me the right stuff. And to tease out the facts and the knowledge from that whole giant concept, I say define a building. And well, you think of that like in a dictionary, building. Oh, well, there's a bunch of words. Well, define all those. Define all those. Define all those till you get down to this atomic level of materials and concepts of related concepts. And I prompt it that way, and I say, use the Socratic method on yourself. Ask the questions you need to know to define this top level, and then give me the next prompt. And it gives me the next prompt with all this stuff filled in, and layer and layer and layer and layer. And I go right down to water covers the planet and air swirls around it. Whoa, back up to. So that's been pretty useful here. And I've been trying to tune it for different concepts, like lawyers could probably use this because they're always touting the wrong or non-existing hallucinations. So this in an expert system, you can then, and I'll probably have the LLM start producing the test queries that I do on these expert systems to produce recognizable knowledge.
Neat. I wanted to, when I thought of doing this, I don't think it was possible to do, but I think certainly ChatGPT, you can upload documents to it. I should be able to upload the 3 documents I've written on the P2 and ask it to write code to do something with the smart pins, say.
I do that all the time.
I wonder if we could how could we convey that to a customer? Would it be just a set of prompts? Like, would it just be a prompt that primes it and says, okay, look at these 3 documents first before looking at other things, and then converse with the user after that in this context? Maybe we just have a cut and paste prompt that does a lot of the stuff.
I'm guessing that would work. But like I said, I don't use the online ones. I
Sometimes
make
I
things more
tell,
difficult for me, but
I think you just need
sometimes
to
I,
make a purpose-built document that you could feed the chat bot so that because I'm using only free stuff. There's limitations on how big your
Yeah.
request was. I think I prompted Grok one time and he said your request is as big as the universe itself. And they don't take kindly to too much information, but I would like to have a meetup sometime where we kind of focus on LLMs and how to prompt them, or even just write some code together as humans with the aid of a GPT or a chatbot, I should
yeah,
say.
that would be really interesting and productive, I think, because
Oh yeah.
I don't know where this AI stuff's going to land, but it sure is useful. I mean, it keeps me productive. I used to get stuck in potholes that would span a day or two,
The
trying
other
to
thing,
reason out how something works, and this just springs me right back out.
I find it's an excellent sparring partner because I end up doing a good job formulating a question because I know that it doesn't know the background. And so by the time I formulate my prompt, I've already almost solved the problem just because I've
Yes.
actually
Yes.
helped formulate the problem.
My experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I find that it's it just helps me wish upon the star the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a
So
really interesting feedback system.
how could I think one of the things that, it's a pain to have to develop really good code and then share it with the community for free. That's nice, but we're all kind of trying to do that simultaneously. And it would be, I think, useful if we could pick off a couple of items where there's some holes in our software that the community on a meetup like this, we can sort of say, okay, here's a couple hours. These 4 people are going to be the main people. And then a bunch of people could test it on the side. And we'd have like this workspace where we developed a community developed application or we'd start out, get the spin code working, and then somebody in the group would take that off and play with the assembler portions. What's missing in our code that we should make better?
Yeah. I kind of think if AI could be really put to use, then the P2 silicon would sell because implementing it in a design wouldn't take special knowledge. It could be exploited for its capabilities. And, so I think that could work, but we just have to have an easy path to implementation. And I was talking to a guy yesterday at Doug's place, and we were going over all this, jerk-driven motion control, where jerk integrates into acceleration to velocity to position. And he said that not many designers. He's like a sales guy for a company that does Allen Bradley support and add-on stuff. And they also sell the core Allen Bradley PLC products, which are super expensive. Like a servo motor starts at $3,000 and goes up. And they sell this stuff all day to people. And he said the people that are using their products these days don't know anything about like even physics, and how it applies to motion control. So they're making these machines that'll like wear themselves out prematurely and cause too much vibration and strain on things because they don't even think about the kind of stuff that you suppose someone designing this would think. But the Allen Bradley suite makes it easy enough that they can start bolting stuff together and making something happen without any kind of necessity of deeper awareness. And he said that even OEMs, he even has OEM customers that are turning out products based on this stuff that are really poorly configured because the designers don't even understand the physics behind it.
Well, it gets pretty humbling pretty fast when you get down into the high speed or hook up a scope or start getting into metallurgy. And yeah, it takes a really well-rounded individual to be able to pull all that together.
Yeah, because I've seen things before in commercial products, and I thought, man, it looks like the person, whoever designed this thing, wasn't even paying attention to some basic stuff. But it's funny, you know, I mean, anybody here right now could do that job well. It's on this forum, but apparently these companies are hiring people, and I'm sure paying them six figures, and they're getting like strange results, and then they're mass replicating them.
Yeah. No, I did a little thing with an Arduino and ChatGPT, and I was actually showing it to a 90-year-old friend of mine. I says, "Hey, have you ever played with a chatbot?" And it barfed out some code, and I ran it, and it worked, and it's so amazing. But it did stupid things, like it had I2C on pin 13 where the LED blinks, and so I had to troubleshoot that a little bit. It didn't take me long, but it's willing to make really silly mistakes, and I can't tend to get wrapped up in its encouraging. It's assertive and it's encouraging, and
those are two good words for it.
Yeah, it's just, I think it would be useful if we could put together some training tools. And one of my other reasons I struggle with the P2 is, if I put it down, I haven't really been very active for months and months, and I go to use it, and it's like, oh, how does it work again? And I have to.
I do the same thing. I have to go back to the data sheet those Google Docs that I wrote, and I have to, because like the other day it's like, how do I get a smart pin to output a pulse? I know it's possible, and so
I know.
I'm looking at the pulse. I forget what I called this mode, but I had to read it like 3 times and go, oh yeah, that's how I make a pulse. And that should be like way more apparent to anybody.
But this is a case where having a very large set of libraries that newcomers can grab onto. I know I told you this story, Chip. I was in a special effects shop a couple of years ago, and you know, they know me, and the people around the entertainment business here that I've worked with, they know that I'm the Propeller guy. In fact, one time they called me and said, "Hey, you're the Propeller guy. We need some help." Okay, fine. But anyway, when I was sharing with this shop, you know, how cool the P2 was, the first thing the shop owner said was, what's the set of libraries that are available? If I don't have the same kind of libraries that I can get with an Arduino, I'm just going to stick with the Arduino. And that's right. I know it, you know, it probably grates on you, and even to me a little bit. I write most of my own libraries, but there is a group of people out there with money, you know, that they would probably buy more P2s if they felt like I could have it, and within even a day or maybe 2, something working reasonably well. And then with good libraries written by you or any of the people that are on this chat, you know, they would have something to learn from and could go from there. I mean, that's you know, my friends in the movie business tease me all the time. They say, "Why do you give away all your code?" And I say, well, I don't know. I just do. That's kind of been the way that we've done things with the Propeller stuff. And it's always nice when somebody says, hey, because I do from time to time, and I'm sure many of the people on this call have got those letters too, where you get an email out of the blue from somebody saying, hey, thanks. I had a problem and I found a bit of your code and that showed me what I needed to do, and away you go. So it's, you know, you did the hard part with the hardware, and now, you know, you, Chip, and the rest of us, all your friends that are on this call, if we put together a good library base, and now getting to the other details, well, maybe using ChatGPT or, you know, any of the LLMs to facilitate that. And then also, I think it was your point, Chip, is to coach people on how to use the LLMs to help themselves with specifically with the Propeller.
Yeah.
That's a good idea on the libraries and the LLMs to duplicate common libraries that the Arduino world likes and know about. I have better luck with the LLMs when I don't make them think and code and spin at the same time. I'll make them, but having them look at, oh, here's a whole API. I've got to replicate this API, ka-chunk, 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 and then it becomes a translation thing into spin.
Right. Well, that's what
and whereas making it be creative on what would make sense for this interface, you end up with something unique in the end that people don't recognize, and it stumbles more on the code.
Well, that's what I was talking about, I think, is what I meant anyway, on that OLED thing that I did as an exercise. And it was really an exercise to see if I could get help from from ChatGPT or Grok, who say, show me how to write code in a generic format that'll run on virtually any microcontroller. And then I did the translation to spin, and it turned out it worked the first time. So I got it laid out all the concepts. I just made them spin specific. And so that's how I'm tending to do things. The thing with the SHA-256 hash, I just asked, I said, hey, give me a, I thought, there's probably so much information out there, and ChatGPT seems to understand Spin 2 syntax a lot. I think Grok is a little better, and Claude AI is also pretty good with that. And I think Claude is kind of set up for programmers. So I've experimented with all three, but I'm finding, as you were suggesting, Shannon, is that, hey, let's just, give me the generic process and I'll convert it to the language.
Yeah.
Observation, if I may. I'm really liking where this discussion is about studying how we do code and Spin 2 stuff with the models. I'm liking the fact that we're talking about local models and the internet-based models. I would suggest, tell me what you think about this. How about we have mini forums, not the live forums. Let's keep that for what this purpose is, but let's schedule every couple of weeks a mini forum that is specific. I would volunteer 3 weeks from now to do a Grok-based Spin 2 stuff and show you the things we've been able to achieve for it. What do you think about this? And then others of you that play with other models, you can volunteer to do sessions with how you do local models or how you do other models non-Grok. I say Grok because I'm developing a lot of experience around Spin 2 with the Grok. Let me say that again, it's not Grok, it's Claude Code. I want to be real careful. So I'll demo that. And I've got a lot of experience with it. And I'd be very willing to talk to Spin 2 coders about how to do Spin 2 with Claude Code and show you what I've learned. I could do a special session, could be 20 or 30 minutes easily when I first do it. So let me volunteer for that and suggest the new style for meetings. Tell me what you think.
I love that idea. Yeah.
I'm
I'll be
good.
there.
I'd show up for that.
Oh, yes.
The funny thing about this AI stuff is I use it for things, and people ask me like, well, how do you use it? It's like, it's just as simple as anything. The worst thing you can do is underestimate it, because then you're less likely to get something out of it.
Yeah.
But like where I live here, we have this farm here, right? And we have this sign on the road that says farm to fork corridor. It's like, wow, you're entering a farm to fork corridor. So I wanted to be able to make foods out of stuff that we grow and sell them. Well, I call the planning department at the county, because you have to be permitted to sell food. It's not trivial. And I ran into this lady that just totally stonewalled me, right? It was very frustrating. And so then I started talking to other people in the county, and they said that, no, there's a lot of us that are for this. So then I was using ChatGPT to kind of like look at, and they figured that what we could do is amend the existing agritourism code to involve food and dining on farms. So I was using ChatGPT to kind of look at the code and do all this. And ChatGPT kind of realized what I was doing, and it goes, would you like me to make an amendment for you to the code? And I said, why not? Okay. So it just popped out this thing that can be passed today. It's like it it understood the context, the spirit of the thing from both sides, the existing agritourism rules and then the whole farm to fork matter. And it went out and looked, I was watching it, it went out and looked at the Tehama County legal code. It grabbed that and analyzed the existing regulations and everything. And then it wrote this amendment that could be passed. It had everything properly paragraph numbered to fit into the existing code. It had here, we're going to have to add some additions to these 3 terms. It did that in one little box. I mean, as if you had a lawyer spend 50 hours or 100 hours after going through all kinds of meetings with different departments and coming up with this thing. So I handed it off to the environmental health director, this lady who was once negative on this, but now she's positive. And she's like, wow, I never had the public do my job before. I said, hey, it wasn't me. It was like 10 seconds of Chat GPT. So she printed that thing out and shopped it around to all these directors in the county, and the supervisors have it, and they're ready to pass it. There's only like one person in opposition. And I asked that lady the day, like, what's the nature of their opposition?
Note the menu is still not appearing in the application in main window. Can you check the DOM? Maybe you don't have a place for it. I don't know. You tell me what's wrong.
Wait, are you, Stephen? Did you guys hear what I was saying? I don't know if I was heard. Maybe I got cut off.
I
Yeah, we
heard you. Yeah.
I
Okay,
think Steve
sorry.
was talking to his LLM.
Okay. Anyway, so she said, I asked, like, well, I kind of wanted to know, I think it's the planner that would be in opposition, but I go, what's the nature of the opposition? And I don't think she wanted to reveal, because it would have revealed it was the planner who's just a pain. And she said, well, let's just say that you got plenty of people in your corner. So hopefully by the end of this month, they'll pass this thing, and then suddenly farm to fork will go from illegal to possible, even though the sign's been up for like 5 years on the road.
Well, if you want to get around that right away, you can use what's called a private membership association, which doesn't work real well for tourism because everybody's got to basically contract. But
Right.
for repeat customers, it'd be great. I mean, I'd love to be able to go to a number of different farms that are all part of a PMA and eat there, because that's where the farmers actually eat,
Confirmation we can now confidently start debugger windows.
Right.
So you might want to look into PMAs. That's how the Amish do it in Pennsylvania and Virginia.
GPT did bring that up and said that's an option, but there are some pitfalls. But I got to catch what I'm making. I've got these Vietnamese banh mi sandwiches. I got it all proven. I can make the bread, the pickles, the meat, everything, and make it just perfect. And I've got the whole equipment set to do it. And so people in Red Bluff, like my farmer friend said, this is just a pork and beans town. Nobody cares about anything other than meat here, meat and potatoes maybe. But there are a lot of out-of-towners that come from like north, like Reading, and they go to Chico and down to Tahoe. Those kind of people would totally stop in if the sign was up. But locals would be kind of skeptical. They'd come in and maybe try it, hopefully like it. But I got to catch, passerbys, because they're the people more inclined initially to buy the sandwiches.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, Stephen, FYI, I muted you because you were talking to something or someone else, and there, now you're back.
I'm glad you muted me. Thank you. I didn't mean to be not muted.
I know, it's no problem. Anyway, yeah, this whole AI thing is so interesting because it's a matter of just like conversing and then not underestimating it and letting it show you what it can do. And I really think Chat GPT has gotten much better just in the last couple of weeks. I think they've introduced this 5, and that's what I've been using just because it's free. I was paying broke $40 a month, but then I wasn't really using it, so I canceled it. And I just gave it like a couple little queries yesterday or a couple of days ago, and it locked up. Said, oh, you can't ask me any more questions for now. So I'm just hanging out in GPT because it's free, and but it seems to be super. I mean, it's so crazy. Like if my dad, when he was a young engineer, if he could have used something like that, boy, it would have been just total science fiction, but now it's reality.
Chip, if I may interrupt, I noticed we don't have Ken and Ari here. Can we get to them the fact that maybe we want to do these little training sessions, Zoom sessions
Yeah,
with the different
yeah,
models? And go ahead and sign me up for the Cloud Code demo session about 3 weeks from now.
okay, yeah, let me write one here. Kay Gracie and Aristides.
And I think everyone here kind of wants to do that. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have a P2 AI discussion forum.
Right. And we'll just have, we think it's necessary, and each of us with experience can talk about maybe a couple different models in each meeting if the presentations don't go too long. Otherwise, specific meetings with specific models. We should also record them and make sure they're recorded videos at a special playlist from Parallax, how to use AI with coding, the P2.
Would you have an individual topic ahead of time to so like I could take a go dig around on it?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. Do it in the announcement. These are the topics that are going to be in this next recorded Zoom meeting. That will also be then up on YouTube, and that gives us a good collection of AI related topics for how to develop for the P2.
I'm listening.
Sure. And then have some sort of way where we can send in a suggestion, for the future, then y'all can take a look at it.
Oh, we can just bring it up just like you do here.
Exactly. We can open a forum category for AI use for development with P1 and P2. What do we think about that?
The forum category would be great, I think, to consolidate and focus and distill this thoughts.
Okay. Chip, you can also mention that so they can act on creating a forum category for us. Okay, I don't think there's a reason to separate P1 and P2 development with AI, do we? Just keep it all P1 and P2?
Yeah. Well, whatever. I mean,
I'd like to keep it together because, well, the models seem to know the P1 better. For one, for two, I know the P1 better, but I have more of them.
But then you'd also be able to take and find the similarities between the two, because P1 code and P2 code, slight differences here and there, and then we could do it side by side. Because I'm working with both platforms, so that would be more educational for me.
Right, and then I think one of the outputs that we can do is these tools are very good at comparing and contrasting information and writing differences. They're also very good at detailing documentation from very concise and terse specifications and giving us better documentation. So what I propose is each of us working with models. I'll start with what I'm used with, and that's why I offered I'm going to have summaries of the instruction set for both PASM2 and SPIN2. I'll generate some model digestible, let's say that better, documentation that can guide these models better because it has rich input data. And then we can take that as a community and feed it to our individual models, and we can discuss how well did that work. So that's also one of the things that I'd like to do to help us get better with each of our models. These are our thoughts. Does this?
Yeah, that's a great thought.
Okay.
Having our own corpus of concise, true, known documentation is, I find, more and more useful. As I'm watching the LLMs doing their thinking, they'll kind of collapse that in the end, but I like to watch it go on, and the threads, it wanders down, and a lot of the things I would have wandered down too. But I am finding more and more that both of them will say, yeah, that link there, Google Docs isn't letting me in, and I can't get to it. And GitHub, oh yeah, I see the file. It won't let me pull it down. So I'm going to try loading screens and OCRing it. It's telling me it's doing that to get around GitHub's now and Windows models and stuff. They're trying to hold off. Oh, don't stay away from this treasure trove here. And sometimes the OCR will work. Sometimes it won't. Anyway, it's explaining it more and more often. I'm hitting things where it says, I can't get the raw data that you pointed me at.
That's too bad. So they're getting.
Let me give you a couple hints right there real quick. I'm specific to Claude Code for my current studies. So there's a -- verbose option when you start it. It will tell you what it's thinking behind the scenes. It'll tell you what it's planning behind the scenes, and then it'll start giving you responses. So dimmed gray text is what it's thinking. Very cool. The bright text is what it's talking to you. Very cool. If you were using subagents or agents, if verbose is on, each of the agents will also explain what they're doing, just so you know. Okay. Second thing, when you have large PDF documents, like our Spin2 document is 2 megabytes, it can't handle that. Very simple thing. Each of the sections, print the document to a new PDF a section at a time. Let it ingest the section, and it's really successful, just so you know. So that's probably true for the other models we're using as well. This is my experience, just a heads up.
I convert to Markdown a lot, where I don't expect for it to need to look at the pictures too much. But often it surprises me when it pulls out of the images as well.
Yep. It's actually going to be capable of comparing images. And so there's a future for checking regression tests visually as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, I should stop here so I can continue what I'm working on. So I'll let you guys talk.
Hey, Stephen, do you think that would be more of a presentation and we would just absorb, or would it be more of a, hey, let's walk everybody through getting set up? Or would it be a collab of, hey, let's code together? What does that evolution look like?
I think a show and tell of what he's found.
I think it's a presentation more to start.
Well, you know what I'm really thinking is your 3 suggestions are all valuable. So I think there are 3 different presentation forms right there.
Okay.
And I think in doing those 3 forms, we show each other how to do each of those forms as well, so we can do them with other models. What do you think?
Yeah, and some tricks and traps. Like I've been playing. At work we have an offline chatbot, and I've been talking with the developers, and they were explaining to me some of the traps. Like there's some policing that happens in there, and there's also some things where you'll feed it a large document, and it will look at it'll just jump around the document and grab sort of a sampling, and then make an answer from the sample. It doesn't digest the whole thing, and so there's some of these little tricks and traps that people.
Interesting. That's some economizing thing.
Yeah.
The Google, whoever OpenAI, or who makes X, or they must just be trying to economize on their service. But it seems like if you pay for a premium version, it should go through and not cheat or skimp.
Yeah, an observation there for you, Chip, too, on paying for a premium version. Claude Code has different levels. My video freezed. Are you still there?
Yep, we hear you.
Good. Claude Code has different pay levels. There's a free level, and there's a minimum payment level, and there's some more premium levels. But I don't know if you've heard of the concept of MCPs. These are little extensions you can add locally, and they take behaviors. Why this is important? Think about GitHub MCP and think about a file system MCP. If the MCP is not present, all the GitHub interactions are going over the network to Claude servers and then out to GitHub. All your file system operations are going out to Claude servers, and it's studying things out there. If you put the MCPs in place, there's no traffic to Claude servers anymore about GitHub or about the file system. So to reduce your costs for the free model or for the $20 a month model, you install these MCPs, and all of a sudden how much you're using the Claude service that you're paying for is dramatically dropped. This is probably true with other models, so pay attention to looking for if you can do this with other systems.
What does MCT stand for?
It's Mike, Charlie, Papa, and I'd have to look it up, but to give you a sense, I've actually took 3 days and built one to assist my own development environment to survive compactions with Claude Code and to survive crashes. And I don't lose work anymore.
I just found it. That's Model Context Protocol.
Correct. It speaks to how the local service, it's a little binary platform, one for each platform you run on, Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. And you tell Claude when you start it, I'm speaking of Claude because that's what I know, probably true for other models. You tell Claude when you start it, here are the MCPs I want you to use. It connects. The MCP binaries publish an interface for what they can do. So Claude, when it connects, first reads that published interface and then starts understanding how to use it. Also, the other thing you'll find is that it can develop its own best practices from studying that interface and then save those away so it gets more efficient over time on how to use the MCPs as well. So it's a crazy interesting system. And so I wanted to give you a heads up that that's how you can reduce your costs for something like Claude Code. Install the MCPs, and now your charge for network traffic is dramatically reduced.
That sounds pretty cool. So it's like a local agent. It can
Absolutely
basically-
true. There are classes of agents out there, MCPs, that are non-local, and so you want to pay specific care and attention to finding local only ones to reduce your costs. There are other ones that use network traffic, and then they're going to, of course, try and drag you into paying for their service so their MCP can work. And so I'm very careful about making sure I don't use any networking involved MCPs, because what I'm trying to do is reduce my costs and runtime efficiency as well. If I want to study 12 documents in a file system for summarize these, that's a heck of a lot of Claude AI networking traffic that all of a sudden just disappeared. And the responses are so much faster because of that. Same thing with GitHub committing my commits, dramatically reduced and no cost involved once you go local. So I needed to mention this.
Does that let you expand the context too? Like every MCT has its own context and can answer questions about, say, the document that it holds?
It doesn't quite work that way. What it
Okay.
does do is unify. It remembers when you talk about context, if you have a GitHub focused context, yes, it gets very aggressive about learning the structure of your local repository and the state relative to the remote repository. And so Claude doesn't have to keep researching that. The GitHub MCP remembers that and makes Claude's interactions much better. So it removes the workload of remembering all that detail from Claude. And so it is making Claude more efficient. It doesn't, for instance, the file system one, it may cache where things are, but it doesn't pay attention to content of the documents. It may remember files, formats of the documents to aid Claude, but it's not trying to do Claude's work. Does this clarify?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think about how to do this on a local level, because I would rather spend, like, I spent $350 on a 12 core server, no, 24 core server. I forget. It's a E52943V3,
Nice.
but it has 512 gigabytes of DDR4.
Wonderful.
For $350 delivered. I thought this is going to run my LLMs, but actually I've got a bigger machine with 12 channels and a pair of Xeon Golds that I built for like $750, and I'm going to put the memory in there, and I'll have 768 gigabytes. And one of the reasons that Claude and the online services don't allow a big context is because it sucks up a lot of memory. It, like, for instance, if you've got a 70 billion parameter model, it may use 40 gigabytes. But if you had a 512 I think it's kilotokens, I'm not sure, 512K context window, that would use up another 40 gigabytes. So on every question, or every token, actually, it loads in, it cycles through all the memory. So memory bandwidth becomes a huge thing. More memory you use, more memory bandwidth you need, and the slower it gets. So it's a big deal when you're running your own hardware. Like I run this Quen 235B, Quen 3 235B model at 4 bits. So it's around 140 gigabytes. And I'm getting like 1 to 2 tokens a second. So it's not something that's great at interacting with, but I can just ask it a question, go off and do other things, come back, and it's got an answer. And the new Quen 3 models are just amazing. But the Quen 3 coder at, I think it's 32 billion parameters, that's only like 32 gigabytes. So I'm getting somewhere around 15 tokens a second off of that. And coding questions are just amazing.
That's so
Amazing
interesting.
accurate.
This is an application that will use all the memory available, and every time it does something, it uses all the memory. That's kind of a new advent.
Yeah. Yeah, it does like a matrix multiply on everything for every token. And that's why memory bandwidth is such a big deal. And for me, getting back to that standalone computer, one of the things I've been thinking about lately is, boy, oh boy, I'm really tired of going through these Unix machines to get to my LLM server, because I want to keep the thing constrained to a serial port. It can't get to the internet except
Yeah.
when I update it. And what I want for myself is a workstation, very light. I don't want all the internet distractions, but I want a bunch of serial ports, and I want 2 1080p displays. And I don't even want a windowing system other than just text-based. But if I can have 8 serial ports on the thing, and then, you know, set streams between LLMs. So in the back end, say I've got eight servers running 8 LLMs, and a server could be a laptop. Like I've got this heavy 64 gigabyte laptop that cost me about $300. It's hardware so cheap nowadays. And
Wow.
that's where I run my Twin Coder, because it runs effectively on that even. But if I could like control the streams, like, you know, copy this serial over to that one, right? So one LLM can prompt another one, and none of them get to the internet. And if they want to get to the internet, well, they ask me, and I copy it from someplace else.
That's a pretty curious architecture, sounding rather like what I'm using right now, what I'm coding right now, using Stephen's wonderful octaport serial port controller.
On a P2 or a P1?
On a P2.
Okay. I haven't seen that
One
one
cog
yet.
driving 8, and I've had more, but we'll leave it at 8 to get optimal speed. And he's profiled that extensively. It's great. But for doing just what you are talking about, I call the code name, the product might be called Serial Box, because it has, well, lots of serial ports and maybe more than 8. But I had envisioned, I've got a console going through one, ANSI console, menu driven, and yeah, I expect to be routing inputs and outputs together. And I wasn't thinking LLM at the time, but database out one of the serial ports or multiple serial ports, and having a small, well, or large, or anyway, another database server on that serial port, and doing, storing massive amounts of data through it.
How
And
fast are you going on those ports?
I don't recall. There's over 2 megabaud, 2 megabaud.
2 megabaud times 8 in one cog?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It goes higher than that, but I think that's a safe limit.
Yeah, if you look at my, thank you for mentioning that, Shannon. If you look at my repo, whenever I build something like this, I'm doing it for performance. And so there'll be a study with logic analyzer traces and things out there, I believe,
Yeah.
That actually speaks to what the maximum capability I found when I tested it. My testing, how do I certify it? Imagine we had 2 P2s with 8 serial port pairs lashed to each other. And we run a single cog, and in the receiving side, we're running a single cog, and we're doing checksum validation to make sure no traffic is lost. And we keep bumping up the speed till we lose checksum verification. And then we come back and we have some sense of what our true capability is. So all of that audit and performance measurement and how I tested it and what the test infrastructure looks like, it's kind of weird with jumper wires between two P2 edge modules, quite a nest of jumper wires. But it's entertaining. But when I do a project like that, I tend to give you, I try and put in my repo a page where you see logic analyzer traces and my test methodology, so you could actually go back and prove my numbers with it. And it also gives you a sense of how real I am with the testing and whether you can trust it. And you're right, you can get over 2 megabit per serial port.
Is there flow
It's
control or is it just
Okay,
two
guys.
wires?
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Sorry, Chip, sorry about that. I'm signing off. It was a pleasure as usual. Johnny Mac, if you're still there, thank you for the information. I look forward to your first lecture, Stephen.
Glad to do it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks,
Oh,
Martin.
yeah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I'm curious, so it's all in one cog, 8 async ports. Are they, I guess they're just transmit and receive, right?
Using the smart pins extensively.
Yeah, that's how you can get away with it, because the pin has actually got a 1 character buffer that gives you room to
Yeah.
deal with.
Exactly. And there's circular NQing and DQing, I believe, as well for this. I don't remember correctly, but I might have been doing that when I was testing.
And what clock rate were you running the chip at?
You'll have to see the repo for that. I do these things, these are months, if not years ago, and then I dump it and I move on to other things.
That sounds impressive. Sounds like fun, along with some engineering discipline.
It's
Yeah.
in it's in OBEX, search octoport.
Yep. And so, yeah, we have somebody's doing a large robot and wanted to solve some serial problems. And I knew that was available. So I took a couple days from what I was doing and generated that thing. I tend to do everything with logic. I'm a former logic analyzer team member and former in-circuit emulator team member with Hewlett-Packard and Agile Technologies. So when I do these projects, I bring all of that history with me and I instrument these projects deeply and then prove that everything's working. So that's why you get that benefit when you go to my repos. It's kind of weird, but I like to play this me. It's me. Yeah.
Found it. Posted it in the chat.
And you'll also, you'll find the OBEX links to the Git repo for you, so you always have latest, in case I forget to post the latest. And I'm back to testing my local stuff. Shannon, it's very cool that you're finding that stuff useful. I love to hear that.
I appreciate the maximal use of smart pins wherever I find it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I've been thinking about building just a serial terminal on the P1 because Chip had a 1600 by 1200 display working, and I've got a 1600 by 1200 display. Well, I think I'll just skip the P1 for that. If I can do P2, 2 megabaud times 8, that would eliminate a whole lot of mess around.
Yeah.
Do you need any flow control at that? I guess you don't need for the local side, but I guess you probably would use it for the remote side, right? No, don't need flow control.
For this purpose as
I
display.
should answer that differently. You need a listener that can run at full rate, of course. And this is protocol agnostic. So if you want to do CRCs, you want to do message types and things like this, you do that on top. I did CRCs for testing, so I can tell when communication breaks down, and I do a full round trip, sending them back and forth and stuff. You can see my test code. Please audit me, and if you think I have a weakness in my test, let me know. I'll improve the test and make sure that repo is even more robust if you find anything. But I wanted a transport mechanism that you could lay anything on top of that you need for your design. I tried not to be non-generic with response to how it imposes restrictions on your using it. Shannon, are you finding that to be true?
I've not gotten the creative rerouting in the middle yet. And I'm still defining that for myself, what to put on there. So
very cool. One of the things I'll generally do is put a layer on top of this that gives you maybe packet types in the front and CRCs and length and CRCs, so you can readily detect without looking at the messages if the message was corrupted. So typically I'll do those things on top just by standard practice, but I don't require you to use this package, I think is the issue.
mostly my initial thoughts from way back was just the some new sensor comes out, and of course it comes out with Arduino libraries, and I wasn't and still not a fantastic spin coder, but so I didn't make libraries, but I just do the hello world for the new sensor on the $3 Arduino, and then process the ASCII that comes in and play with it that way. Very low tech, low speed, but it made it dead simple for me. And I imagine a world where if we were going to attract the people that live and die by Arduino libraries, that would be a way to, hey, bring whatever you have, hook it up to these multi-serial port, and I'll collect your data and process it, and you can have a console up to your desktop where you can do more data processing. And that's been round and round. I've never solidified yet, but that was the original inspiration, and that's where I continue to push here.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Question. Is there a conferencing platform that where we could share terminals, like multiple screens? Like, it's cool for Zoom, you can see each other and you can share. One person can share a desktop, but it would be very cool if multiple people could type into
like over the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've thought too that would be very neat. Like if we had a P2 computer, if it had like its own little version of the internet that uses the internet, it could kind of just have security through obscurity. You know, nobody would care about it, and it would be like a great place for people to communicate and share code and ideas. And
that'd be cool too. I was actually thinking of a replacement for Zoom for like the LLM conversations, but it would be so sweet to have something more than a toy. And I think that, the Commander X16 is more of a toy. It's something real usable without all the distraction.
yeah,
And on that point, you'd mentioned you're using the Wiznet, probably the 6100 chip or 6200 chip.
That's what we've got. Yeah.
There was another guy on here that was doing machine control over just raw Ethernet, and he made a couple. He had a chip that he had a little board plugged into the 8 pins of a Johnny Mac board, and he talked to it directly via Ethernet. It didn't offload the IP, but I'm guessing you could get better bandwidth out on it if you did the IP locally and just stream the packets out.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand, the Wiznet is fairly slow compared to the speed of the wire.
It has an 8-bit parallel port that you can use, but and Terry Trapp, the guy that made the Blitz and Light controller out of the P2, he's using the 8-bit mode. But you know, for what we're doing, machine control, we need to ultimately send messages of like, you know, I don't know, 10 or 15 longs each direction. It's not, you know, every 10 milliseconds we got to send a little bit of data. That's the whole point of this, just to be able to move data across. And the SPI port would be fine for that. So we just hooked up, took 4 pins off the P2 to talk to that, plus 1 pin to reset the network chip, which is kind of a luxury. You may not need that, but I think it's good to be able to do that. Actually, you know what? I remember looking, it does have a hardware reset register in it that you can use. So maybe that's
Assuming it's talking PI or SPI at the time.
yeah.
Which it may not be if it, you know, you had a voltage transient, like
Yeah.
a remote lightning strike that didn't kill things, it just got things confused.
Oh yeah, it could. Yeah, yeah. It constrained the SPI interface to be like one of 4 things, either variable data rate, but it's all, if the chip select goes high, that kind of resets the SPI state machine, you know. So I think maybe it is simplistic enough that you could always do what amounted to a hardware reset over SPI. So that means it would, if so, you could get away with just 4 pins.
Right, but I'm guessing that's an expensive chip.
It's like
$8, $10.
$5.
$5? Okay. That's
Yeah.
not that bad.
That's a solid chip too. I mean, that's been around for a while, right?
Yeah, and then I remember talking, those Wiznet guys came to Parallax once, and we went down to their place once in San Jose, I think, and at the time, it was like maybe 15 years ago, but the military was buying a lot of these chips because they implemented the first 4 levels of the stack in hardware. So it can't get lost, like, you know, I mean, if software is written wrong, it can wind up getting hung. But this chip never hangs, you know, and you can always reset it. So the military found it useful just because it was a reliable thing to use for internet communication or Ethernet communication.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
And then the CIP, this Common Industrial Protocol, is just sort of like a messaging, like a class-based deal where, you know, you use a certain port to what? Let's see, if you plug in, you're going to be polled over a certain port to see if you're a CIP device. And so you have to respond to that. Then you kind of get logged into the system. It's a little like USB, but it's also kind of like, come on in. It's also kind of like a tribute collection system, you know, where they thought they would, here you go, bud. They thought they'd, you know, give you a way to supposedly work with standard stuff. But I don't know that we could really implement one of their motion controllers because it's probably the only stuff that does CIP motion control is expensive Allen Bradley systems. And they're used to the Allen Bradley plug and play stuff. And I kind of doubt that some of that is not proprietary, so that we wouldn't really be able to emulate it to the point to replace any of those more expensive servos. But if we just make a generic interface, so we're going to have a CIP device that uses a register, a set of registers that can go back and forth, then we can implement all of our control protocol over the umpteen registers, you know, which is simple enough. It's like in a P2, you have one cog that writes the data, another cog that reads it, and some way to flag if it's been read or not. And that's all you really need. And that can work over UDP once the connection is established. So you just have these messages flying every 10 milliseconds, both directions. And once that connection is established, you know, you can do anything, you know, assuming you have the bandwidth to.
Is it client server where the
Yeah, that was really confusing. See, I thought I had to make a client thing, and ChatGPT was helping me with this. But we actually needed to make what was like a server because, or is that right? We have to respond to plugins, right? So if we plug in if we're on a CIP network, we should be getting on a port a message to identify ourselves, where we then give our vendor ID, product ID, all kinds of superfluous junk information to then have visibility within like Logix Designer, which is a pretty common like PLC organizer system. Does that make sense? I may not even be explaining it right because I don't know. I'm not super confident about it.
It sounds pretty deep.
Yeah, and see what was happening was it's like I thought we needed to be a client, so I was getting help from ChatGPT in that vein, and then we realized, wait, how do we respond to plugin requests? And I started doing some more querying. It's like, oh, well, we need to be sort of like a server in the sense that someone's going to ask us a question, we serve an answer back. So that then ChatGPT, oh, well, you gotta be able to respond to these messages, and then it just spit out all this code which I put in. Had to tweak a little bit to compile, but it's not quite running yet, and I don't know. It's like I don't even know what I'm doing, and I don't really like to have that kind of relationship where, well, I don't know, it didn't work. Give me more code. Okay, here's the code. Does this look okay? Because then I'm not really in the driver's seat, you know. I'm kind of like a passenger.
Yeah, that would be important.
They're kind of like, but anyway, once it works, then what I can do is I can winnow it down to the essentials, and then you know, verify it that way, and then know that we have something that's like finite. And here are the parameters. This is all we need to worry about. And then ChatGPT can tell me, well, you might want to check on timeouts if this happens, or if this, you might want to put some kind of control loop in at the highest level. It'll probably say stuff like that, which I need to hear, you know, because I'm not even sure what my responsibilities are as a whatever we are, server, until we go to UDP mode.
Right now you're in TCP mode?
Yeah, I think, see, initially the login stuff is done over TCP, right? Where it has to get a verified response. Like, okay, this is the thing's response, if there is one. But then once that is established, then it switches to UDP. And what does UDP mean?
Unigram Data Protocol.
Yeah, Universal Datagram Protocol. Yeah, so then then both systems can just send, you know, messages. They can periodically, and the other guy receives it, and then, yeah, there's no confirmation mechanism, and then you build your algorithm, which is fine because we can work with that, you know. I mean, there are ways to verify over data that if you got a message or not. It's pretty simple.
Right. It's lighter too, and if
Yeah,
the Wiznet chip is at all a bottleneck, you can overcome that on the P2. Because you're on UDP, you do the verification, everything. You do the sliding window.
yeah, the UDP packets within the subcontext of CIP, I'm sure have like checksums and things like this.
Right.
So you know if you got something good, but as long as the messages are sustained at like 10 milliseconds, you know, then that's enough to implement all kinds of motion control stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder it for a full-blown system. It's tempting to bring in another system to offload stuff, like a Raspberry Pi, talk to it over SPI or Parallel or whatever protocol.
Well, yeah, and see, they have
do the networking and the SD
and they
card.
have good debugged libraries with simple interfaces to make it all happen, whereas you don't have to work it out starting at the SPI bus level on some custom implementation.
Right. But you add in the complexity of running Unix or Linux.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll get it working. I'm surprised we've gotten as far as we have, as fast as we have. But I think like next week, it'll probably be running in some semblance, and we'll get a leg up on it. Then it'll kind of come together. But then there's another layer after, if we can get all the CIP stuff organized for the internet, Ethernet IP, then we have to have some kind of plugin that works with Logix Designer that will add some other layer so that from a PLC command, you can like issue motion commands that have to get turned into register assignments, and then they have to get sent. There has to be some verification they were received, or we get some instantaneous motor reading. So that's another level which we haven't explored yet. Yes.
Yeah, when you say motion control, that covers quite a wide area of
Yeah.
application.
Yeah. It's I mean, basically we have the code I wrote for him just takes like, well, you can give it a velocity assignment or a positional assignment. It can plan a path of motion and then execute it, or it can like, stop a motion, but all the while, handling jerk and acceleration limits and velocity limits. And you could make it, yeah, you could have it change velocities. Well, not with one motion plan, but you could interrupt it in the middle and have it do things, which is useful for some weird stuff. Yeah, that's the idea, yeah. Bud is asking me some things about it.
I'm curious about everything.
Yeah, he's a universalist. Anyway.
Hey, Chip.
Yes.
Did you have a chance to look at the debug terminal window ideas that I sent you?
I'm sorry, I haven't.
I will resend the email because
I'll find it right here. I know you were telling me about it.
Yeah,
and
it's become really useful, again, and I'll give Ray Allen credit. He was using it, and he put out in the forums he wanted to be able to use my I2C kind of IO map in that thing, and I thought, oh, that's a cool idea. So I figured out a way to do it. But then, so there's two things that I would like to have. I would like to be able to change the foreground and background color arbitrarily. Right now, the way that the debug terminal window works is you can have 4 color sets, and you can swap between any of those 4 color sets. But I want to change anytime. And then the other thing that you and I talked about a little bit that would be really useful for something I'm doing now, since you don't have scrolling capability really, or well, you can scroll the whole screen, but you can't recover it. So what I'd kind of like to have is a definable scrolling window so that I could have scrollable stuff in a window, but then I could keep static data around, because then I could make a really nice kind of live interface, and that would be really useful for some testing I'm doing now.
Okay, yeah, and you want this to work on the normal debug window. So
on the terminal, the debug terminal window.
Oh, the terminal. Okay.
Yeah, so you have a debug terminal window.
Okay, I see it. Yeah,
it's kind of like an ASCII terminal, which is nice. And so remember the old days, back in the 90s when we used to use ANSI codes to make colorful windows, in text on our IBM PCs. So it would be nice to be able to do that. In fact, it'd be really cool if we could find a font that we could load in, so we could, do all those IBM characters with the boxes and all that jazz. At any rate, but the changing color arbitrarily anytime would be great.
There is some provision for doing that on the terminal, on the debug terminal window. There is some provision for being able to switch colors up.
Right, but you have to predefine 4 color sets and then you can switch
Okay.
between either of those. I want to be able to arbitrarily change.
Oh, yeah, you did explain this to me. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yep.
And then the scrolling window thing I think would be really cool because then it becomes a really nice, useful thing. Because I mean, those of us that don't have color blindness issues, a lot of times you would just be able to, you change the color of something and you'd get people to notice. They don't actually have to read things.
Right.
And that would be really helpful for what I'm doing with my P2 work and laser tag. And, I help John Huffman, with his stuff. And what it does is it saves us a cog as well. Because right now, both of us are using a background cog and just going out to PST. And it just, again, I hadn't really paid attention to it until Ray. Ray puts up a lot of neat things in the forums, and I say I find use for them. At any rate, I think that would make the debug terminal window really useful. The nice thing is, I other than the scrolling window thing, I proposed the color change, the arbitrary color change to Marco, Maka, who does the Spin Tools editor,
Right.
and he already implemented it in his version. So it's nice to have. It's a scrolling window thing now that would be really nice if that's not a problem.
By scrolling window, I mean, you mean the scrolling is under some kind of control. It doesn't just happen when you run to the bottom.
Well, I don't know. I mean, whatever you think is best, but what right now is the entire window scrolls. I'd like to define, and I should have say scrolling region, so where you can say, hey, between this X1,
Oh,
so just that section
yes,
scrolls, but everything else stays in place.
I gotcha.
That would be really, really useful. So live data can scroll by, because that's transient stuff, but everything else around the edges or wherever, you define it. But I think that would make a really nice,
Yes.
make it very nice to do debugging. This is one of those things where I think there's some opportunities. I mean, you put a giant amount of work into the debug windows, and I think if people that are outside a normal group or even some people inside it hadn't been thinking about that stuff, if they saw some practical examples,
Right.
I think it would cause them to say, hey, let me give this a try.
Now that would make the terminal way more useful because you could have all these little subregions that you could update with data that scrolls by. Then you could have some easier color control.
Does the color do the whole page, or are we talking about being able to change each line individually? Or the section?
Well, he wants, as you're printing, you can call out different color schemes, and then the subsequent data would have that scheme. But he also wants to make like little regions where,
You've got the scroll, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent you some demo code and some pictures from Marco's thing so you can see what I'm asking for.
Okay.
And again, I think it just, I'm a very, very visual person, and many of us are. So, I think it's one of those things where, well, this is the way I tend to operate, especially with the propeller and this stuff is I'm working with it and I will say, darn, I wish I had this. So then I send you an email saying, hey, Chip, I wish I had this. Please help me out.
No, that's the impetus for everything. I thought too, it would be super simple to have a deal where you break out, you actually have up to 8 of these little windows, and you take the cog messages, they say cog 0, cog 1, and route each one to a separate little window. So then without having to set up a terminal or anything, you can at least get messages, on a cog by cog basis.
Right. So that would be interesting. I'm sure a lot of people would take full advantage of that.
Yeah, it doesn't,
I would.
all it needs is like you could just define at the top level some symbol or have a mode where it breaks those things into 8 windows, and then you get to watch each one, because otherwise the messages all get, mingled up and something critical scrolls by real quick.
Right, yeah. Well, and that's the difficulty with just a standard debug window. Everything scrolls by and then you can't recover it.
Right.
So, you know, some things that's tolerable, but there's other stuff you'd like to leave on screen.
Right.
And you know, this is, you know, I'm going through with the battle tower project. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. And, you know, so I was doing some testing for Josh the other day, and it's crazy. I'm just trying to watch very carefully what's going on. Because it was too much. This is where I need, you know, something where I can have scrolling windows and some static messages. So at any rate,
Right.
if you could have a look at that when you get a chance, I know I would appreciate it and get a lot of use out of it. And I egotistically think a lot of other people would find it useful too.
Oh, no, that's totally useful. Yeah. I mean, so really all you're asking for is a way to set up a foreground and background color
On
for
the
the
fly. And I even
on the
gave you a
fly.
suggestion that Marco implemented. So I would ask that you implement it the way Marco did, so we don't have to go back and forth with
Right.
that. And then, but the scrolling window thing, you know, you understand what I want, so I'll leave that to you for
Yeah.
implementation.
So he said like color white, red. Is that how he's doing it?
How did let me look.
Am I sharing my screen? Do you see it?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah. What am I looking at?
Right here. See my cursor?
No.
No,
Oh, I'm supposed to wait. You
the
are
bottom line we
screen
see is
sharing.
jump loop.
Right
Yeah, we
here.
only see a portion of your screen.
It's supposed to be giving me like a portion. Hold on.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be letting me have like a rectangle. So I want a portion of the screen. And then what is all this? There's too many buttons on this thing. So I say share, and then it puts this thing as if, wait, you are
Yes, he's
sharing.
cropping your screen.
Yeah, I wanted to give me a rectangle, and it's like, seems to be hogging the whole screen. It used to work just fine.
Click and drag over the spot you want to share. That might make the selection you want. Maybe.
Yeah, I just don't see. It should give me a green box, and I don't know. I mean, this software used to work differently. They just changed it up on us. So now it's doing different things. But anyway, you see this where the 4 debug statements are in a row? Can you see those, John?
Yes. So I think
Okay, look at the third one.
Well, maybe I don't see them.
It's unclear to me what I'm sharing. It's just
yeah, well, so we can see your vars, your pub go, and your pry motor loop down to.
Oh, wait a minute. That's like a whole nother deal. It's the wrong screen. Hold on. Hold on a minute. Now do you see something?
Now we see it. I see assembly.
Okay. What a pain. Let me stop sharing. Oh yeah, that's weird. It was like,
Yeah, I think it's
wait.
tricky, you know, with you have a multi-screen setup. I think it becomes a little confused.
Okay, here, I've moved stuff around. So let me try this now. Portion of screen, share. All right, now hold on. Oh, here it is. Somehow it wound up underneath the forum thing that we're doing. Okay, there. So,
Okay, may I interrupt, Chip?
yes.
For Zoom, when you share screen, all of a sudden Zoom constricts itself to a little bar somewhere on one of your windows. On that bar, you probably see a little green button near the bottom of it, and it has a pull down. If you pull that down, it shows you a little miniature version of what you're currently sharing.
Okay.
If you have
Yeah,
that, you can always cross-check what you're sharing by looking at that. Does this help?
Yeah, I was putting the Zoom app over the green box. So the Zoom app was hiding it.
Okay.
It was like sharing underneath the box. And
All right.
so anyway, now you can see this code.
Thanks for the interrupt.
Now do you see the 4 debug things, John?
Yes. So how are you defining? Oh, I see. DT color. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
So is that how Maka's doing it?
Let me. Can I share my screen and I'll show you?
Let me stop sharing.
Let me go to this. Oops. Oh, share. So do you see an editor there?
There we go. All right,
Okay.
now.
So if I click on the debug, so here's the arbitrary color. So here is I in the code these are the color sets that are predefined.
Right.
And then here's where, you know, in now again, this is only compatible with spin tools, you know, obviously able to arbitrarily to just like you were doing. So let me look to see where that's happening, because this was back in June, so I don't remember how I did it. Oh, so all right, let me look at this. I need to look. I made this is what Ray was saying. I made a background. I made a debug object for this just to simplify some of this stuff.
Okay.
And so,
Oh,
so yeah, so I think they work the same way, because here, obviously what I'm having to do is create strings, whereas you put them in directly, which is fine. So you see, I have all of the strings that are legal defined in all of this. So when you say, you know, like set foreground or set background, and this is in my object, my debug terminal object, you know, you're passing a color, which is an index. And so
yeah.
based on this, it will create the color for you, and then it debugs it out as a string. So I think it's exactly the same. You're just doing it directly. This is doing it indirectly because I created a
Right.
debug object.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I
I
can
think if,
go and modify the terminal. Yeah, here it is. I got it on my screen. So I just have to look for those words. That should be really easy to do.
yeah, it seems like it would be, you know, like I said, I asked Marco and he said, oh yeah, I can do that. And the next day he had it. So he said it was easy, and you did too in our first conversation about it. So it's just a, you know, and if that's where we get, you know, that would be great. Again, I think the scrolling region on top of that would really be super nice.
Yeah. So what we could do is define some subregions. And if you set the cursor and print in those, it'll scroll when it.
Yes, just like like right now with the whole screen, if you're on the bottom line and you have a return, it'll scroll all the lines up. But now it would just be contained to a region, which would be really great.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I can do that.
If you want to be super fancy and make vertical and horizontal scrolling, that would be fun too.
Yeah, I wonder why I didn't do it. I did it with these color schemes. You can set the color schemes, but
That may be one of those things where, you know, I found when I was going through, I was doing something and I just needed more than 4 color sets. And so I thought, well, geez, why can't we, you know, why define them at all? Let's just be like ANSI code
right. I
and
don't know.
do it on the fly.
I should have done it that way in the beginning. It would have been so simple, but I think I was like thinking like teletype and, you know, they might just want a couple of different, but what I can do is I can augment it and not disturb what I already have.
Yeah, I would suggest that leave it as is, because that way it won't break any code that people have done that way. But now, well, again, the example you just saw was using Marco's compiler, and both were used. Now, one
Right.
of the things that was, oh, I already turned on the screen, but there was something where if you, what it seems like, and I'll have to go back and look at it, so I'm going to be cautious saying that. It seemed like when you did that, when you changed the foreground or background, you were overwriting the first color set, which
Right.
I'm okay with. You know, that would be fine, because you set that, and you know, it's your default color set. If you want to change to another one, you can still do it.
Right.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John. That's probably like a 15 line change.
Okay.
Nothing at
Well,
all.
you know, and as you know, I mean, you have my number. If you have something you want me to try it and ring it out, just send it to me and I'll do that.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Because I can through, I mean, one of the nice things with spin tools, and you should give it a go since you know you're writing code for Doug now, a lot of code. It's got a lot of nice features in it, and you can, you know, and Marco has his own internal compiler, but you can also say, yeah, compile it with Peanut.
Right. Right.
Can you scroll those subregions, like with the scroll wheel on the mouse?
Well,
You
I
mean-
wasn't asking for that.
I mean, I was thinking for my, you know, terminal project to do like a whole text windowing system where I don't need any like handles on the windows because it's all going to be text.
Let me
But-
chime in here and show what I've been working on for terminal console stuff that might interest you, Doug. And speaking of ANSI colors and whatnot, I don't mean to cut you off, Doug, but
No problem. I'm just
Okay.
theoretical at this point. If you got something to show us,
let me
that's way better.
share a screen. Can I do that?
Yeah.
There's a share button. A window that looks like that. So that's Parallax Serial Terminal or similar. No, this is out of Spin Tools, but anyway. Oh, now you can see, I think.
I don't see anything yet.
Oh, it's coming in the green
just
box
saying.
here. I can see what's happened to it.
There it is.
There we go.
Okay. So yeah, I'm anti operating system. I'm only run the application right on the hardware, but my application seems like an operating system. Anyway, this isn't everybody could expect to see something like this. I've got no, let me click in there. Shouldn't have written down there. Anyway, got the flash file system in there. Let me go help again. List and whoops. There, you type the commands, you get the response up above. But navigating around here, and this is something I've had in other applications and I really like that keeps your fingers on the keyboard. And I'll point out now, you were just saying, well, I don't need smart windows and handles and everything. I'm not a big move around the window either. That stacking windows was novelty. But I have each of these buttons down here. I've made a struct for them. I call them hotspots that selecting them will fire a command. And the content in there is delivered through an evaluation, another function. So the content in there can be dynamic. They're all lined up here like nice tidy buttons, but imagine that in the future being a full screen of spreadsheet cells and doing functions in between them. And, you know, you evaluate the contents of each cell. But for navigating, I've got this in my, well, I'm gonna have to, I only just cooked this up last night. Let's just put some stuff again. Do you see the little yellow highlights
Yes.
on the buttons down there? A, B, A, C. So I hit the back tick up there below the escape, and that tells me what keys to hit to go activate and click that button. And let's choose AC, the file menu. And it puts in the sub menu here with active highlights, so I can click on through down into the menus and say I want to load a file. AD. Oh, there's a couple config files up there in the top. I click the back tick again, and now I can select those. And that's how I cooked that in early, and going to be building that out and to be the default navigation through this whole thing. And I expect probably you could tab through eventually, like active fields and stuff like that. Anywho, I wondered if anybody thought that was interesting. Way to, I mean, here's the serial box really, and configure where my 8 ports are set up, on what pins are they set up, and route this input to that output, etc. And do that graphically through a configuration like this, and then save the configuration off. So when I start, boop, that's the behavior. Now it's all set up. And in the, I've been chatting a lot in the PLC realm in there, and combining that with my learning about expert systems and production systems now, and how they did that. And I want it to be a configuration that you load and executes rule sets and stuff, more declarative than procedural. And that can be saved as configuration and loaded and changed around like that, and then viewed as a configuration. Oh, this routes to that and that routes to that. And so that's where I was going with that.
Can you copy and paste between serial?
Likely we will be able to. Thank you for that tip. I imagined routing, you plug this RX into that TX, and to have a sort of viewer of what's flowing through it, what's flowing through that pipe. And I don't know, we capture that or, but I mentioned having a bunch of Arduino sensors hooked up and all doing their writing to the console. Sort of like the virtual terminals on your Linux machine, your Unix machine. You can jump from back and forth between them. I want to look at this board. I want keyboard strokes go out that serial, and I see what comes in that serial. So you could jump back and forth and run the console on all those connected serial devices. Yes, implemented, no. But I'm finally feel like, okay, I've nailed down, and this is the structure I'm going to build up, and collect years worth of experiments in all these different spots that had no way to be used, visualized, useful. So I'm trying to collect them all into a system like this.
Neat.
So you're changing the colors in the Parallax terminal.
It's just ANSI codes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And say that submenu thing. And the LLMs are great at that. When I had load and save up in this top menu, I just explained, I mean to have those under this file menu. And it swooped through and reconfigured and got all my hot links and everything to come and go in the right spots. That is not logically complex, but it's a tedious lot of shifting stuff around and getting things to point in the right spot again. So that's why that moves pretty quick now with the LLMs.
Yeah, let the computer do the slave labor.
Yeah, the tedium.
So you could do your copy and paste at the operating system level. I'm guessing you're running Windows.
I suppose up here, can I actually? Yeah, I could copy through the whatever terminal, and I'm sticking to VT100 ANSI terminals. So that lots of terminals speak. You know, you can use your favorite putty or whatever on it.
Yeah, one of the problems I run into with talking to the LLMs with a VT220 emulated terminal, it doesn't have the codes like the little spinner when you ask it a question and it's busy.
Right.
So I get a whole screen of B's down. It just keeps scrolling B's until it's done processing. Then it tells me what it's thinking, and then it gives the answer.
Right.
On the bigger LLMs, the coder LLMs though, they just like start spitting out code as soon as you hit enter almost.
It's
and
crazy.
Not a whole lot of preamble and thinking
well,
time.
I tend to set my stuff. I say concise. Be concise. Don't expound and elaborate on things you're going to hallucinate about anyway.
Yeah,
give me just the facts.
Right. Yeah, it looks like the start of something cool. I didn't know you could do color codes in the serial terminal, but then again, I don't run Windows, so.
Well, this ANSI terminal, I'm oddly on this Windows machine. I'm normally on a Linux or BSD for worky stuff, but actually most of my daily driver is on Haiku. Is that BOS clone?
I'm not familiar.
A 90s operating system that
BOS.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never used it.
Oh, that was my daily driver for about 8 years back then.
Oh.
So now that the open version, Haiku it's called, has come quite a ways, and it's really serviceable. If you don't like doing stuff on the web, the browsers aren't dynamite, but it's enough actually to get Grok or Perplexity through the browser, and that's effectively all I care about browsing wise. So Haiku really fits the bill for me now.
I'm doing a search for ANSI, ANSII, right?
Just one eye.
Just one eye. Oh, there's a whole bunch of ANSI.
ANSI color codes, yeah.
In the Propeller OBEX. Like VGA text routines. That's exactly what I was looking for.
And
codes by Eric Smith. So it must be pretty good.
Yeah, and there's Johnny Mac there. I've got using some of the color code stuff from his code, JM ANSI. I did discover routing ANSI, these color codes, these sequences, or moving cursors around and stuff like that. They're not that long, but they can't be broken. There's a timing constraint that the terminal will interpret it as a code and not type it, or if it doesn't come through timed right and there's a gap in there, it'll interpret it as just text and spread it out. So I, in using the octoport, have limited the strings I send through it to 32 bytes, which is the buffer size in octoport. And then all my ANSI colors and all my ANSI code and all the behavior straightened right up when I pay attention and don't break those sequences.
I was just thinking, if you're going from an ANSI terminal and pasting, copying from an ANSI terminal and pasting to a connection that can't do ANSI, like my old SGI systems, I'm going to need to put a filter on it so that it doesn't speak ANSI to my
right. To weed
SGIs.
that out. Yeah. But if you're copying from the terminal, I don't know that you actually grab the color stuff.
I'm not sure. I did some copy and pasting between. Well, talking to an LM through an SGI ends up with funny characters like apostrophes become B's. The spinning cursor that you get on a Linux console, those become B's, and then there's some other characters that show up too, and sometimes they're reverse colors. And that stuff would have to be filtered out. I don't know if I've got there might be a way to just tell the serial port that my terminal can't do that, but I don't know exactly what the parameters are. So I've set the term to VT220 and I still get that stuff, so I'm not exactly sure. I got to play with it more. It's just one of those things. I don't get time to play enough, and that's what I'd like to play with.
Yeah.
But I gotta pay the bills too. Plus, I can't miss out on the crypto opportunity. It's going to be bye-bye here soon.
Well, you're making a Bitcoin miner on a P2?
Actually, I thought that's one of the tasks that I had LM. So write me a SHA 256. I didn't know Johnny Mac had one written already for Propeller, and well, I got the code and I saved it off. I just hadn't run it yet. That was more for just academic reasons, because there's a Bitcoin miner for the Commodore 64.
Well, if you have good, I suppose, good random number generation, there's nothing stopping you from hitting the jackpot, right?
Yeah, it's just probabilities. Very, very improbable.
Right.
But for me, the just knowing the market is the time right now is to be trading. Or the more conservative approach. The time was a few months ago to be investing hard. Like I had made like $2,000 this morning, and then I went out, and then I lost $2,000. I mean, I didn't sell at the top, so I lost that $2,000, and I'm not sure what it's doing this afternoon, but the opportunity is there, so I'm going to take advantage of it and buy my freedom.
That's right.
Good luck.
Yeah. If we have money, there's a thought we could buy freedom. Huh, looks like everything went up today.
Yeah, I haven't checked it lately since I got on here, but now that you mentioned it.
Well, guys, what do you think?
I look forward to the LLM talks, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'll try to make some more code with it. I think I'll just I'll present at some point and just everybody to look over my shoulder, and this is how I do it. And people can chime in. You might try this or try that, or I don't know. I like to look over the shoulder of other people and learn just tips watching them work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got prop term running on a, I think it's running on a demo, not a demo board, a project board. Propeller, protoboard USB, I think. And one of the things I don't like about it, it's running 640 by 480, right? Really low, and 800, I mean 80 by 24, 25. So
Like Temple OS.
yeah.
Below.
Well, I don't quite have those resources even on a P1. But I think just as baby steps, I'm going to turn that res up to at least, max out one of my LCDs around here. Maybe not the 1600 by 1200, because I think that takes 5 cogs, if I remember right. And just
yeah.
about all the memory.
Use them
But
up.
then
If
again,
you're in a terminal.
if I can do 1600 by 1200, then I could have, it takes up 5 cogs, and I have one for each serial port, because I want to be able to do at least 115.2 kilobaud, because that's what a lot of my Unix machines speak, and that'd be actually doable. I don't know how it'll look, because when I did that, the 1600 by 1200, the timings weren't quite right. I don't know if you remember, Chip, that the sync was kind of jittery on it.
It should have been locked up.
On my screen, it wasn't
P1.
rock solid, but because the timings were really close, but not quite, because it was just cycle limited. But I'm probably going to upgrade it to 100 megahertz clock.
Yeah,
I should get closer timings. I don't know. I'm going to try it the way it is, with the 80 megahertz clock on the 1600 by 1200 LCD that I've got, and see what I get for timings.
yeah.
Even if my prop term runs in only the upper left corner of it, just having 1600 by 1200 on the screen is first step, with prop term running and doing the serial stuff, and then expand from there. Maybe I can get some of that done before like show and tell on the LLM days.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pack it in. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I'll end the meeting now. Yeah, thanks for coming. This was good, and I'll look forward to this LLM thing too. I'm going to do some experiments between now and then also about seeing if our data sheet is sufficient for it to write code from, or can I take one little smart pin section and improve it so that AI can use it better?
And yeah, well, have it do the work. Here's the smart pen stuff. Look at all these details in depth here, but can you make this more? Yeah, I don't know. I often ask it to write its own prompt. I give it the gist, and it fills in details that I would have missed, and it comes up with a better result.
And my neighbor down the road his wife uses Chat GPT for their little farm side or roadside farm stand business. And she uses GPT for marketing, and she'll tell it like, you can do better. And it actually does something better.
Yeah.
Tell it to, if my question is kind of good, to fix it and rephrase it and make it better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll give you what you're looking for.
Yeah. It's funny how that whole thing is. It's too easy to underestimate it.
One of the things that I think would help more than the document is more code. Feed it good quality code.
Yeah,
it could infer from that.
Yeah.
Steven and Johnny Mac and Raymond and Roger and Maka. And,
Yeah, exactly.
well, there's a lot of them.
If you don't mind me saying, I think there's going to be value in, once we understand if we can use these agents to study code bases, that one of the first things we can do is literally drop the entire OBEX into the local file system and have it go crazy.
Yeah.
And teach us about implementation styles and audit the individual implementations, see if they find any issues, because I've been finding that it's actually capable enough to do that. And
Wow.
I think this would be a really powerful feedback. And then what I would probably do as an output from that is generate contributor specific reports and let them know that they're available if they want them. I don't have to blast it at them, but I can certainly make it available. What do you think about that? That's kind of in my mind.
I don't want to see my faults. I don't want to know.
That's why I would suggest and make it optional. Depends on how bad it would make us feel.
Well, I'd have to put something up on OBEX to be impacted by that. So
Oh,
yeah, me too.
work on that.
But you know, once we develop a study technique, who says that I couldn't have a prompt ready for you that you run, and it audits your code base, and you don't have to tell anybody. You know, so that's a potential outcome too of this process. I've been having a lot of fun experimenting with different types of things. And I've been working with different languages, and it's been strongly successful in every language I've attempted so far. So I'm very interested to see what it can do with Spin2 and PASM2.
The language models that I've played with, I found that there's a huge difference in quality of code. I tried some, it was a simple thing, but I did it in Bash and Python and TCL and in C++ and C. And it in Bash, it took like 12 prompts to get what I wanted.
Jeez.
Python, it was only like 5. TCL, it was like 15. C++, it was 2. And
Yeah,
C,
exactly.
I nailed it the first time.
Exactly. And I've been doing TypeScript as well, as you can imagine, given the things I produce for the community. And yeah, I'm seeing similar things. It's damn good at JavaScript and TypeScript and C. I'm also experimenting with Swift and Objective-C. And so I'll have feedback for some of that too. But you're right. It's vastly different between the different languages.
Yeah. So did we lose Ada since we're talking so much LLMs?
Probably.
I didn't see him this time.
I don't think we even saw him. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye too. I look forward to having a presentation ready for you guys. And hopefully materials produced before then as well that are consumable. So I'm excited.
Are you going to put up a discussion on the forum in the meantime?
I think
Maybe
we've asked Ken or Ari to go ahead and start a new forum. And once it shows up, let's all just, you know, kind of talk about what we're doing with them. Let's make that rich. And then we can put, if we have specific questions for what would you like to see when I do Claude Code, for instance, start a Claude Code topic and put it up there. And then I'll pay attention to that as I'm preparing for the presentation.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Good night, everyone.
All right, guys,
Hey,
thanks
y'all.
for coming, and we'll see you a little later.
Chip, if you have time, I have specific questions about the language, so if you can call me.
Okay, I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
Shalom,
Okay.
everybody.
All right, bye-bye, guys.